I'm David Scandura.
I'm Justice Burkett.
And today we're here to find out, is Little Shop of Horrors the greatest movie ever made?
Thousands of you eating. That's what you had in mind all along, isn't it?
No shit, Sherlock.
Welcome to the greatest movie ever made, the show where we watch a movie and tell you if it's the greatest movie ever made.
Feed me.
A movie that is so thoroughly entertaining and compelling that while you're watching it, explains the thing that matters in the world. I don't know why I did it that way. It's just,
You sound like you're an auctioneer. You sound like you're, oh, yeah, wait, $100. You know what I'm talking about?
Have you seen the videos of those guys?
Yeah.
With rap beats underneath?
Yes, and it fucking works immaculately well.
So awesome.
Of course.
I'm David Scandura, joined as always by my co-host and mean green mother from outer space, Justice Burkett.
That's right. David, I am so excited to be here with you talking about... is this our first musical? Well, no, our first musical would have been Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, at this point we've done a couple
Prince
because
of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how our guest was nodding when I was remembering the other musicals that we've done because she remembers our episodes better than I do.
But first musical that I think that's been adapted from a stage musical. So like,
yeah,
it's pretty. I think we can kind of call this like a true blue musical in a way that Muppet Christmas Carol and Prince of Egypt.
Little Shop of Horrors is a great American musical. It is Menken and Ashman. It is, right? Did I get those names right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I am not the musical theater professional in the room, and with that, we should actually probably introduce our guest. We are joined this week by Kelsey Hontz.
Hi. I didn't know when I was supposed to start talking.
When we introduce you, so like right now is perfect.
Or whenever.
Yeah,
honestly.
or whenever. It doesn't actually
I'm
matter.
here. I'm also in the room.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
You brought us this film to talk about. You're a fan of the American musical.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a fan of all the musicals, but I'm a fan of the podcast. And then I was like, how come y'all don't talk about musicals? And Justice said, why don't you just come talk about musicals? So here I am.
That's how you get on the show, is you give us suggestions for movies to cover. And I'm like, just fucking come on and talk to us about it.
Yeah.
A friend of the show, Marcus Wynn, was like, hey, I would like to suggest you guys talk about Black Klansman. And I was like, just come on the show and talk about Black Klansman. So
Marcus, where are you right now?
Yes, potential spoiler for a future guest episode. But that is truly how you get a guest spot on our show.
Yeah, basically, we're bored, and we're bored of only hearing each other's voices every week.
That's right.
So if you've got an idea for a movie that we should talk about, and you're willing to just come on the show, just fucking ask.
If
like, just come on.
If you're one of our rando listeners who we don't actually know in real life, we might still have you on. Who fucking knows?
Hey, Belgium. we can make it work.
Yeah, our like one South Korean listener. If there's something you want to talk about,
yeah.
fuck it. We'll figure out that time difference. Okay, so normally when we have a guest, we ask them this question first. Kelsey, how are you doing?
Oh, boy. Well, I was just expressing to these two very kind and non-threatening gentlemen that I was nervous to be on this podcast. So if you hear a little voice waver at the beginning, that's because I gotta just like sift through my own weird anxiety about being in a new environment.
Even though you talk into a microphone all the time for your job.
Yes, for my day job, I am an audio describer whose voice is featured on Max, Discovery, TLC, and HGTV. So if you ever hear someone describing content like, Jasmine and Gino walk down to the park hand in hand. Gino is 57 from Michigan, and Jasmine is 37 from Panama City. That's me. That's what I do as a day job.
I think you should do the whole podcast.
Oh
in your audio
God.
describer voice.
Wow, thanks for having me, Justice Burkett and David Scandura.
I'm here to talk about Little Shop of Horrors.
From 1986.
Directed by Frank Oz. Directed by Miss Piggy.
Yes.
Directed by Yoda.
Yes.
Yes.
Is my perspective.
Yeah. The two genders. Anyway. Sorry, I cut off how you were doing.
Oh, that's...
Other than nervous.
Yeah, being unnervous slowly, and also petting these cute dogs that are here. Is my current mood, is petting a dog. How are you two today? Because I only get to ask you in like, how are you director or how are you actor.
Oh, yeah,
when we are working together.
We should mention our guest, Kelsey Hontz, is my stage manager for Julius Caesar, which I'm currently directing.
Yes.
So this is like, we have been seeing a lot of each other, the three of us, but in a very different context than today.
Yeah, we record on Saturdays generally, and it is currently a Saturday, so I have seen these two fuckers 6 out of 7 days of this week.
And tomorrow you'll see us again.
Yes.
Anyway, how are you doing, David?
I'm tired, and it's hot, and I hate summer, and I hate everything. Otherwise, I'm actually in a pretty decent mood.
Yeah.
But just need to take time off from my day job while I am acting every night.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, and you have not requested any
hasn't
PTO?
happened yet.
Put in your PTO, motherfucker.
I should. It's starting to catch up with me.
Yeah.
And I know that things are going to start ramping up in terms of rehearsals and such soon, so I need to do that, but otherwise I'm good.
Yeah.
As far as media recommendations, the album Perdurance, I think it's called, by the one-man Australian death metal project Convulsing. Fucking rocks. You can buy... Actually, you can just download all of the Convulsing albums for free on their Bandcamp. They're all good and heavy and fucked up and really good, and I like them. I'm also just been rewatching Sopranos, which, hey, fucking bold take here. Sopranos is a great show.
Wow. What a novel opinion. Yeah.
I think the uninitiated don't realize how fucking funny that show is.
Yeah.
Like, people think, oh, it's going to be a grim, serious crime drama. In a lot of cases it is, but, like, that show's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And if anyone hasn't watched it, you should.
Me.
It took me a long time to jump on the train, but
I
I'm
actually
glad that I did.
I actually haven't seen the whole thing. I don't know if you ever have known that about me, that I haven't seen all of The Sopranos. I've seen some of The Sopranos, but I haven't seen the whole thing. So one of these days I should watch the whole show.
Yeah. I kind of assume that because I have seen more things than you.
That's true.
Generally.
Yes. Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in a silly, goofy mood today, and I think it's because I am delirious from not getting very much sleep this week, and then also just my life being totally different, not being at work, and then just only production managing and directing for the Shakespeare Festival and not doing my day job. So it feels like my days, like I wake up later than usual because I don't have a day job to go to. And then I kind of just like fuck around for half the day. And then I'm like, oh shit, I have to run a rehearsal tonight. And I like suddenly go into like work mode. But then like I'm up later because I'm doing rehearsal. It's just like, I feel like my whole shit is out of whack and it's making me just feel very unhinged and silly.
Oh boy.
I just feel like I'm like floating unmoored.
I feel like that's kind of the mood that I'm in too.
Yeah.
But just unhinged and silly.
Yeah.
Because yeah, once you have to do rehearsals from 5 to 9 every night,
Yeah.
changes your schedule a bit.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. You didn't make the rehearsal schedule.
I literally made,
Well, you didn't choose the rehearsal time.
Right.
Technically, I did.
Yeah.
Which, I guess I only have myself to blame. I
Yeah,
have
well.
done this to myself in the most literal sense. In terms of media recommendations for me, I would like to recommend the album Back Home by Joshua. Sorry, that might have sounded all like one word. Back Home by Joshua Quimby, who is a country singer from Connecticut. He's in Nashville now, but he's based in Connecticut. And it's like good, old-fashioned country music. The boy can pick that guitar, but he definitely brings a distinctly New England sensibility to his country music, and it's good. And it's like a light listen. It's not like anything that is gonna make you depressed or feel things very heavily. It's kind of just like light, fun country music that is made by a very talented musician. So that's my media recommendation for this week.
Cool.
Kelsey, did you have anything to
Oh,
recommend?
I didn't realize I needed to have one.
You don't.
Okay.
Just anything
well,
you've been enjoying?
Hey, it's Pride Month, y'all, and if you want to know what the gays are talking about, it's Chapel Roan.
Oh, yes.
She's a lesbian drag queen who
Yes.
sings about being a lesbian.
H-O-T-T-O.
A straight man is doing the hot to go dance at me right now. That's how ubiquitous Chapel Roan is.
That's right.
So check out Chapel Roan. Pink Pony Club is probably the most like accessible one of her songs, and I will do a pole dancing routine to it one day. Mark my words. And that's my media recommendation.
Hell yeah. Chapel Roan's great. I have also been enjoying the musical style.
Happy Pride Month, Justice.
Happy Pride. Allies can enjoy Chapel Roan as well. Okay, so let's talk about speaking of Pride Month, let's talk about this movie.
Yes.
Sorry, it's an American musical. I mean,
Yeah.
The American musical is inextricably linked to like queer representation in the art of stage, the art of screen, right? It's a big part of that. So, and David and I are both straight cisgender white men, so that's pretty much where my understanding of the relationship between the musical and the queer experience in America stops, right? But yeah, it is like I don't know, this movie's a little queer.
It is a little queer, and fun trivia fact is that Jinx Monsoon, the drag queen, is currently playing Audrey on Broadway in the revival of Little Shop of Horrors. Perhaps opposite Corbin Bleu from the High School Musical franchise. He was Seymour for a long time.
Huh.
Interestingly enough. I don't know how y'all normally get into these things, but I have pages and pages of notes on a notepad.
Okay, so because you brought this movie to us,
Yes.
you have the floor.
And
Great.
I had never seen this. Justice, you've seen this before?
I've seen this movie before. I've never seen a stage adaptation of Little Shop. I've only this movie is the only version of this I've ever seen.
Wonderful.
And the only other thing I know about it is that it is based on a play which is based on a Roger Corman movie from 1960.
Yes.
That's all I know.
Okay.
So please educate us.
Wonderful. Excellent. So I've seen this movie a million times. I was also in a production of this a couple of years ago. The musical version, which is slightly different, which I'll talk about. And also, I love musicals. And since I was like old enough to use words, I was like, I will sing them. So I have been listening to this forever and a day. And my notes begin with the behind the scenes of the musical, like who made this and how and why. You guys mentioned it was directed by Frank Oz.
Yes.
Who, if you don't know, Frank Oz is like one of the foremost puppet masters of all time, and not like in a way that he manipulates people like literal puppets.
Yes, also
like,
not the horror franchise puppet
yes.
master.
Yes.
He's not a tiny little S. Craig Zoller Nazi puppet.
No, he's a dude.
It's
who's
so
good
funny
at
that
puppets.
franchise was like, let's do a trilogy of Nazi puppet movies.
That is insane. It's crazy to be like, yeah, like let's just veer fully into now this is about fascist dolls.
Sorry, Kelsey, continue.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's
Sorry, you said the words puppet master.
yes. No, as in he is a master puppeteer.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
does that work better?
Yes.
Yes. So he is like the voice and mastermind behind Miss Piggy and Yoda. He also directed The Dark Crystal and had a huge hand in the puppets in that.
By the way, if I may interject for a second,
Yes.
put a pin in The Dark Crystal, a movie we will probably be talking about on the
Whoa.
show at some point. I would love to talk about The Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I've seen it before. It would be interesting to go back to that.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you've seen The Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
It's so
and read
wild.
the book.
Anyway.
Yes. So puppeteer, Frank Oz, amazing. You already know you're getting some creativity from there.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I will pause myself because I know David does impressions on here. And do you have a Yoda or a Miss Piggy in your back pocket?
I feel like every Star Wars fan has a Yoda, so I don't know if mine would be that impressive. I mean, maybe something. Mean green mother from outer space, I am.
And I'm bad.
I can't. It's not as unique as my Watto. Feed me, Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Howard
yes.
Ashman.
Yes.
Howard Ashman.
Howard Ashman.
Yeah, so Howard Ashman wrote this, and you know him if you grew up at all in 1980 through you were born yesterday. He wrote the song Under the Sea and the song Beauty and the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, both of which won Academy Awards. He's a huge part of the Disney Renaissance films with his musical partner Alan Menken,
Yes.
who writes the music for the lyrics. And you know Alan Menken if you know Pocahontas or Aladdin, or I wrote in my notes, motherfucking Hercules.
I was going to say the last one they
Yes.
did together was Hercules, right?
Yeah, I think so. Hercules is my favorite Disney movie of all time. Alan Menken has an EGOT. He's one of 19 people to have a competitive Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
Do you know who, speaking of EGOTs, do you know who I almost mixed up the Podmaster's multiple nicknames in my brain and it caused it to short out for a second. Do you know who Countess Pod told me is one, I believe, Tony away from an EGOT? Trent Reznor.
Work.
I really want Trent Reznor to get his Tony now. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Yes, so you got an amazing director who's also like a puppet expert. You have amazing music and lyrics who are like the most iconic duo of an entire generation plus of childhood. So it's like a dream team already before you even talk about the cast, etc.
This cast is just full of guys who used to be in movies.
Yeah.
We used to have movies with Rick Moranis in them.
Yes. We also used to have movies with John Candy in them, but we don't anymore because he
died.
departed.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's funny that when they did reshoots, so we'll talk about the differences between the theatrical cut and the director's cut. It's crazy that when they did reshoots, they who's the guy who does the
John Belushi.
No, the guy who in the director's cut.
Oh, Patrick something.
Yeah, anyway, but they had this comedy actor guy come in to do the I want to license rights to sell your plants as cuttings or whatever. And on reshoots, it's just fucking Jim Belushi.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, this guy just fucking shows up everywhere. He's like black mold. It's like, oh, you like look under a stone and you're like, oh Jesus, Jim Belushi.
This is our second film that has Bill Murray just showing up
Yes.
unexpectedly.
We will talk
Yes.
about Bill Murray's scene.
Because I did not expect to see him in Tootsie.
Yes.
And I definitely did not expect to see him show up in this.
Yes.
I think there's probably a lot of parents who brought children to the theater who also didn't expect this performance from Bill Murray in this movie. Being like, close your eyes.
You'll understand when you're older.
Yes, stacked cast.
I also read that Martin Scorsese was attached to direct this at one point.
Insane.
Different fucking movie.
That's insane. That's
I'm a
bananas.
mean green mother from outer space.
Oh, just have Joe Pesci voice. Feed me, Seymour, you motherfucker!
Now I'm picturing like Al Pacino as Seymour.
Oh my god.
Suddenly, Seymour is standing beside you.
I don't know if Pacino can sing. Do you know if he can sing?
I don't know.
I bet he can.
Would love to hear him try.
Yeah.
Everyone wants my Dunkachino. Can't get enough of my Dunkachino. Kids from 7 to 17 lining up for my Dunkachino.
Beautiful.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's the background of who's in charge of creating this film. My argument here today on the podcast is not necessarily that this is the greatest musical of all time, but that it is the greatest movie musical of all time because it appeals to both musical and non-musical lovers.
Right.
And I have a long list of why. Because it's short, first of all. This movie is 1 hour and 34 minutes long. Listen, I love musicals, but goddamn, sometimes you go to the theater and you don't leave until 11:30.
Yeah.
Like, literally, productions of Les Miserables are so long, they have to cut themselves off at 2 hours and 59 minutes. Because if they go to the full 3 hours, the union payment system clocks in and they have to pay their actors more. So some musicals are just like 3 hours long, and for what? But this was short.
For what indeed?
That's a long time to wait to watch a bunch of French people get murdered.
Yes.
Yeah.
French people with British accents, inexplicably. Yes. So it's short. It is also like it's marketed as a horror comedy musical film. My parentheses with puppets.
Right.
So like even if you're not into musicals, you're like, whoa, I love horror and comedy and film. And also puppets.
Yeah, I think it definitely fits into a lot of niches with like the 50s aesthetic,
Right.
the big studio musical aesthetic,
Yeah.
and then just like the litany of 80s SNL adjacent actors
Yes.
that are all in this thing.
But it is doing that like pulp 50s sci-fi thing, right? And it's in the 80s there was a lot of revisiting that sort of era and that aesthetic. You know, we like movies that we're fans of, The Thing, Night of the Creeps, like that's like the same thing, right? Where it's basically like, let's tell this story that is very rooted in like that 50s, it came from outer space type aesthetic, but like bring a modern sensibility to it, which is like exactly what this movie's doing. So like this movie appeals to me very hard on that level because I'm fans of movies that are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I assume the two of you are not huge musical theater fans simply because you have only done like the Muppet musical and Prince of Egypt on here, but I could be wrong. Are you fans of musicals?
How do you feel about musical theater?
I've had my Rent phase. I had my Les Mis phase.
Yeah.
Repo the Genetic Opera.
Oh my god.
We should talk
Wow.
about Repo the fucking Genetic Opera.
I've never seen it.
I have it sitting on my shelf, and I'm due for a rewatch on that because I have not seen that since I was a high school theater kid.
Yeah.
So I'm not an encyclopedia of stage musicals, movie musicals. I've seen a little bit. Sometimes they're my thing, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But I haven't really felt the desire to seek a ton of them out.
Okay.
Yeah. I've definitely, there have been points in my life, I'm not here anymore, but I definitely have been a noted critic and skeptic of the entire concept of the stage musical. There have been phases in my life where I was like, this is the lowest common denominator of live entertainment.
Yeah.
Basically, artistically is sort of what I thought.
Okay.
I don't think that's true. But there
Okay.
have been times in my life where I have felt that way. And like, now that I'm a little older, I'm like, no, that's not necessarily true. There are definitely stage musicals that have artistic merit to them. And like the thing that I would critique about them sometimes is like, this is just like dumb, mindless entertainment for dumb, mindless entertainment's sake. And it's like it's a lot of pageantry, it's a lot of song and dance, and like very little substance. And I think becoming a big horror movie fan has even allowed me to appreciate the musicals that I still sort of
Interesting.
genuinely feel that way about.
Okay.
Because a lot of the dumbass horror movies that I am a huge fan of are the same thing. They're just dumb, mindless entertainment for dumb, mindless entertainment's sake. It's like, what the hell is Friday the 13th Part 3 trying to say? Nothing, right? But I still have a good time watching it on my couch and drinking a few beers, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, it's hypocritical for me to then be like, oh, Rent is just like fucking dumber La Boheme, ergo it has no artistic merit and everybody should hate it. It's like, well, yeah, but I like Friday the 13th Part 3, so like, what the fuck am I doing?
Well, and I like when the musical occasionally overlaps with horror. So
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, Rocky Horror is great.
Even Repo.
Yeah.
Back then when I was really into it. Sweeney
Sweeney
Todd.
Todd.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's always a fun. That's a fun crossover. But I think I took. It may have been one of my high school theater classes where we were going through like the different global contributions to theater, and we got to America, and it was like, yeah, the stage musical. I was like, okay, that
Yeah.
fucking makes sense.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the America would be like, what if we did song and dance numbers up there?
Yes, what if we did it bigger and crazier and, more over the top and more expensive than literally anything?
Yeah.
And we were all having this conversation after rehearsal this week where we talked about how theater appeals to the rich white season ticket holders.
Yeah.
And I feel like the stage musical is like designed in a lab to
Yes.
appeal to that demographic of
Right,
people.
correct. It is like it's the opiate of the white upper middle class theater goer, right? Is just seeing a bunch of like very fit, attractive queer people dance around and sing very well on stage.
I know I'm not on camera. I just rolled my eyes just so listeners can tell. Opiate of the map, please. Okay, that's why I'm here to argue that this little puppet musical with a bunch of bloody murders is like, it's for the Justice Burketts of the world who are like, I like La Boheme better than Jonathan Larson's magnum opus.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
if those people paid their fucking rent, they wouldn't have any problems.
That is true. That's true. But yes, so like this musical, I think a lot of the issue that people have who are not fans of musicals is the very core of what makes a musical, which is when you can't express through words anymore, you gotta sing.
Yes.
And sometimes if you can't sing, you gotta dance. And this musical does that, but in like a very interesting and creative way, which I have many notes about. And also, they cut for this movie, they cut the most musical theater of the songs.
Yeah.
There are 2 songs that are almost exactly the same thing, Clothes for Renovations and Call Back in the Morning, that are in the stage musical. They are both about, wow, this plant's getting bigger and now our flower shop is busy. And they're both terrible, and they deserved to be cut. And they're the most like, we're close for renovations, we're cutting of it, but like obnoxious.
Yeah.
And they're cut. So like the bangers are left. So even like a non-musical theater fan can be like, oh yeah,
Yes.
Skid Row parentheses downtown is a pretty cool song.
Well, and I think Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, which I would argue is one of the best songs in this film.
I would agree.
I think that was written specifically for the movie.
It was, yes. That one's not in the stage musical, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
no great loss, you
Right.
know? And in fact, we improved things a bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're dropping a couple of duds and
Yeah.
introducing like a certified fucking banger onto the soundtrack.
Yes. So yeah, before we transition to the songs, one final thing that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot more when we get to the end is that they literally changed the entire ending because moviegoers were like, I don't like that.
Yes.
So that's why this is the great appeal for
Yeah.
movie fans.
Yeah. Test audiences don't know shit and they suck.
Yes.
Almost as much as studios.
I would like to physically fight every single person who was a test audience member for this film that had a hand in getting the ending changed.
Yeah. The ending is dramatically changed, but they did that for
Yeah.
the moviegoers. So that's why this is the greatest movie parentheses musical of all time. Okay, can we talk about music?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Sorry, I was giggling because I saw you unveil an entire another
Yeah,
page. Of
I
handwritten
have
notes.
a sheaf. Let me give you some ASMR of the sheaf of notes. Yeah, okay,
You're the most
so
well-prepared guest we've ever had, and I just want to say I appreciate it.
I have a lot of thoughts about musicals. So the first song that we got is called Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
Yes.
The only words that I could determine were in the song were Little Shop of Horrors, and then a few words
Shop of terrors.
Yeah.
in there. A few.
You didn't get all the you betcha, you betcha, betcha, betcha.
You know what I got a lot was but yeah. So like this song happens. It's our introductory song to the movie. After the iconic title card. It's
Yeah.
such a good title card.
Yes.
And before the title card, there's like a classic thing that I love to see in a movie, which is the scrolling text that explains like, oh, some shit
Yes.
came from outer space with
s-
voiceover.
I sometimes like to see that.
I like it with the voiceover.
Yeah.
I like when a guy is dramatically being like, on the 23rd day of September, or
Yes.
whatever. it is.
When we're doing it as an homage, I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's
Yes.
fine. And
Which is what it
which
is
is
in
what
this
you
movie,
use
yeah.
here. When it's like, we gotta fucking rush the audience through this exposition,
Good point.
then it sucks shit.
Yeah,
And I'm like
yeah.
rolling my fucking eyes.
Good point. Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, I
sorry.
like it here. I like that we're like immediately just dropped into the vibe and the aesthetic of this world.
Yes. I also love that the shot that is the background of the title scroll, which you think is like a nebula in outer space, is revealed to be a disgusting puddle on Skid Row.
Yes.
Which is very fun.
Hell
But
yeah,
yes,
it
then
is.
we have that
Yeah.
banger of an opening number.
Yes, and so this is sung by the Doo-Wop Girls, who are named Crystal, Ronette, and Chiffon.
Yes.
And if those of you who are fans of Hercules are listening, they are basically the muses.
Right.
Which I think helps a lot for like a non-musical fan audience to have like the muses there to kind of be like, hey, some shit's happening and we're going to tell you about it.
Right.
Just in case you miss like in the lyrics of the lead singing as 16 people are singing at once, you have a collection of women to
Yes.
explain it for you.
They're like
Yes.
a Greek chorus
Yes.
and a Greek tragedy.
Exactly.
Which this movie with the original ending basically
yeah.
is.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
Doo-Wop Girls are always wearing beautifully coordinated outfits. They are the only things, aside from as we get to know Audrey and Seymour better, that are actually bright in this environment.
Yes.
They're colorful, they're cute.
And-
You had a thought.
And sometimes they're part of the Skid Row like ensemble.
Yes.
And then they're in like regular like Skid Row street clothes.
Right, and they're functioning more as characters within the story.
Yes.
Yes, and I think it's during the Down on Skid Row number, or at the beginning of the Down on Skid Row number, which we'll get to. I don't mean to jump ahead. But I think there's one continuous shot where one of them goes out of frame, or all of them go out of frame in their Skid Row outfits, like their like ensemble outfits, and then come back in like the glammed out outfits in the same shot. So they just did a quick change off camera, which is fucking bananas, and I loved it. Anyway,
it is awesome.
I love all their costumes.
Yes.
Visually, they're always like
Yes.
a nice, like you said, like pop of color in frame.
And in a stage production, the doo-wop girls do get some outfit changes, but obviously not as much as they can do in a film, which is one of the many things that the film version takes advantage of. Is like, we're going to put these women in all of these different outfits because we can, and we're not restricted to 25 seconds backstage while someone's elbow's in your eye. Like, so I deeply appreciate that. The next song, did we cover the credit scroll and the first song?
Yeah, and then we're basically, between the first two songs, we're pretty much introduced to Seymour. And his character introduction is a shelf falling down that he's like trying to finagle some stuff on, and Mr. Mushnick yelling at him, "What's going on down there, Seymour?" And him going, "Very little, Mr. Mushnick," which I think is a very funny joke.
Seymour, played by Rick Moranis, the most Rick Moranis role that Rick Moranis has ever Rick Moranis.
Yes, this is like Rick Moranis. It's the text. Yes, and Mr. Mushnick, the role that I would have if I was in Little Shop, because he doesn't sing or dance.
He actually sings and dances in the live show.
But not in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a song called Mushnick and Son that is pretty cute. It's a tango number between Mushnick and Seymour. Unfortunate we don't get that in the film.
Yeah, I would love to see tango between Mr. Mushnick. I'm not sure who this actor was. I don't recognize him, but
he was good.
And Rick Moranis. But anyway, and then we get like they establish the neighborhood with the next song.
Yes. So this is when I want to talk about the general structure of a musical and how musicals tell stories through like certain repeated themes that you might see from one musical to the next. So the opening number of a musical is a very well established thing. It introduces you to the world of the musical, the rules of the musical, the main characters, etc. So some examples are Belle from Beauty and the Beast, you know, when they're like, "I need 6 eggs, that's too expensive." Good Morning Baltimore from Hairspray. Even, and I put a frowny face next to this in my notes, Jellicle Cats from Cats. Cats is the most musical theater. Like, if you really want to piss off someone who doesn't like musicals, you make them look at the musical Cats. But the Jellicle Cats are just prancing around explaining that they're cats because it's their opening number.
And they're Jellicle, whatever the fuck that means.
Yes.
Whatever the flying fuck that means.
And a lot of these songs are also like, "We live in this place and it totally sucks."
Yes.
Like whatever the song about London at the beginning of Sweeney Todd.
No place like London.
Place like London.
Yes.
Or Rent, the title song, Rent.
Exactly. So that's the common theme throughout musicals. This is our opening number is called Downtown parentheses Skid Row.
Yes.
And one thing that keeps popping up about this movie is that it trusts the audience to be smart enough to like get a theme without being like, here's the theme. So like they could say, yeah, this place is ugly and it sucks and people are downtrodden. But also, like, some space shit is going to happen. Or they could have a homeless woman walk out, and you're like, oh, that's a homeless woman. And then she, like, opens her mouth and sings the most goddamn beautiful opening strain of a song you've ever heard, which that's one of my party tricks, but it's really, really loud, so I'm not going to do it. And that just kind of establishes, like, here's a random downtrodden character with a beautiful voice. So this is, like, a magical realism situation.
Are you saying that your party trick is being someone that people don't expect to start suddenly belting very well?
Well, yeah, like my party trick is I'll find an echoey corner and then be like, "Allah!" You know, sorry, that probably just totally peaked the mic.
No, you're fine.
Great.
Yeah, my party trick in college was occasionally you get a couple drinks into me and I'd just start rapping.
Oh.
That was an interesting time.
Pretty sure my party trick was I don't know, not shutting the fuck up after I start drinking, which I do when I'm sober as well.
Really?
But even more when I've been drinking. Anyway, yes. You know what part of this song I really like is when Seymour is in this alley and there's a fence at the end of the alley, and all of these Skid Row people start climbing it like they're zombies in Dawn of the Dead.
Yes. It's really cool.
I love that visual.
It's great. Yeah, and like Skid Row looks like shit, right? Like
Yeah.
it looks awful. Everyone is completely downtrodden and gross. And that's just like, hell yeah, we're here. Like you've shown us the environment. It looks terrible. Justice looks like he has something to say.
But I think the movie is sympathetic to that.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
you talk about that Dawn of the Dead moment, and I don't feel like I sort of got that vibe, but it is also it's not like he turns heels and starts running away from them
and it's like,
scaredly.
oh, gross, poor people.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
It's very sympathetic.
It's
Yeah.
very very sympathetic, very realistic. With the slight kind of veneer of like it is a little bit heightened because this is a musical. Also, can we talk about this motherfucking gorgeous soundstage?
That's the
Yes.
the look that you saw on my face was you were saying this looks like shit, which it does. It does look like a shitty place to live.
Yes.
However,
but it looks beautiful.
it is also beautiful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one point, so it's a soundstage and there's a matte painting backdrop in the background. And it's all like constructed. They've constructed this whole like street corner. And at one point, an elevated train goes by.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? What?
I guess that's what happens when you shoot at Pinewood Studios on
Yeah.
the 007 stage,
Yeah.
which is like one of the biggest stages in the world,
Yeah.
is you can build an entire street block with a train.
Yeah. And like, it's because you see the train tracks and they look like they're part of the matte painting. And then it's just like a train goes by on them, and it clearly looks fake. Like they made it out of like wood or cardboard or something, and it's just sliding. But I was just like, I thought that was a painting. I did not think it was possible for anything to like be moving back there. And it's crazy, and like it captures the aesthetic of a stage production very, very well, while also making it cinematic. Like
Yes.
it's like really, really a good blend of like the source material that they're pulling from, but also like fitting the limitations, but also like the unique opportunities that they have because they're shooting this on film. It's like
Yeah.
it looks so fucking good.
It does. It looks great and it sounds great. And allow me to get into a little bit of like musical theory right now. The harmonies are incredible, but again, it's not too like musical theatery. Like for example, if you see Phantom of the Opera, there's one really annoying song where 4 different characters sing their own lines just on top of one of another, and like they're singing opera. It's probably the most grating sound I've ever heard in my ears. But in this case, you have the female chorus is going, "Uptown you cater to a million jerks," and the male chorus is going, "Ah," which I know because I was in the male chorus in our live production of it. And then they all start singing this like, "Downtown, there's no rules for us" line. Well, our 2 leads, Audrey and Seymour, share their own separate line, which is like, "Show me how and I will, I'll get out of here." And that's, let me relate this to Shakespeare a little bit, where like if 2 characters are speaking in verse and they're like ending each other's rhymes for each other, you're
Yes.
like, oh, they're in love.
Right.
In a musical, if 2 characters are singing the same line, they might be like in love or in agreement, or it's just a way to show that they are connected without being like, "Look, it's Seymour and Audrey." Again, telling us without having to tell us. And the people in this number create the soundscape as well. It's a lot of stomping boots, clicking heels, because you're like, you're in it with the Skid Row people. You're not just a detached viewer. You're like, oh, I'm only hearing this song because I'm on the street with the people in Skid Row.
Yeah.
And also, you can hear the accents coming through in this song for the first time, where Rick Moranis is doing such a heavy accent that his single-syllable words that end in "or" are multi-syllable, like "poor." All my life I fall, we spent poor, which is great. And then Ellen Greene comes on as Audrey, and I could talk about this for hours, but what do y'all think?
This performance, so I had seen this movie before and I remembered this performance because it's very memorable. It sticks in your head.
Yes.
My memory of it did not do it justice. This is one of the most incredible performances I've seen in a musical.
Yes.
I was like, what she's doing is fucking fascinating.
Yes.
And it is so insane that it works.
Yeah.
And it works so well. Like, no line from her sounds like a normal way a human being would say any of those words. And yet you're like, what a beautiful baby angel. I must protect her with my life. You know? Like, it's like, she seems so out of place she would seem so out of place in any other world, but she like fits squarely into this one specifically.
Yes.
And she sort of makes the movie work for me, where I'm like, if she wasn't doing this crazy squeaky like breathy thing where then suddenly when she's singing she's like belting and it's like holy shit, like it's galaxy brain acting. I was like, this is one of the best performances I think I've ever seen in a musical. Yeah, David, what did you think?
David's quiet.
Kelsey, what do you think?
Okay, well, let me explain to you why I think Ellen Greene is so brilliant in this, and then you can...
I'll add my thoughts.
Yes, because I see your shifting eyes over there. Like, most of the time, the female lead in a musical... Like, if we're going to look at Christine from Phantom of the Opera, like, oh my God, she has to have the clearest bell voice you've ever heard.
Right.
Or like one of the female leads in Rent, like they're belting, yes, but beautiful, clear, Idina Menzel singing for the gods. So Ellen Greene said, nah, I'm going to squeak and scream my way through every single one of my notes. She doesn't look pretty when she sings. The veins in her neck stand out as she like strains to get her notes out.
I would disagree that she doesn't look pretty when she sings, but I understand what you mean.
Pretty comparatively. Like,
right.
You know, you learn when you do musicals to like just open your mouth and not tilt your chin and stuff. But she's like, fuck it, my whole body is part of this performance right now. And it truly does make it. And so, for example, on Broadway, anyone that they try to cast as Audrey either has to just play it straight or do a really bad Ellen Greene impression.
Right, because nobody else can do this performance.
Yeah, so then it's like, it's a completely thankless job.
And she originated the role.
Yes.
In the off-Broadway production that this is adapted from. Yeah, so she's like, her playing this role in the movie, she's the only one who had ever played it at that point. Yeah.
She's the Audrey. So, like, I think Jinx Monsoon, a drag queen, might be able to pull it off. But they've stunt casted with, like, Constance Wu before. Sorry, Constance. I'm sure you're a great singer. But unless you're squeaking like Ellen Greene, like, it's not going to work for me. Yeah. My last thing I'll say about the casting of her is that she and Rick Moranis are both 5'6", but she's constantly in, like, 6-inch heels.
Yes.
So she's just, like, towering above him. And I think we need more of, like, giant woman, tiny nerd man combinations. David, what are your thoughts?
All right, I'm going to take a ball-peen hammer to everything you guys just said because...
Yes.
I felt like I was fucking losing my mind watching this actor and this character. I think the character herself is fine. I think there's there's a little bit too much of her story being defined by abuse and stuff like that, but that's like kind of par for the course with some of this stuff. I can kind of take it in stride. Justice, we've talked off mic about Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, and Willie Scott.
Yes.
And how much you hate Willie Scott.
Yes.
She's
just screaming her head off through that whole movie.
This is kind of Audrey's kind of my Willie Scott for this movie.
You found her grating.
I found her quite grating.
That's interesting. I am surprised to hear that. I don't necessarily think that there is no universe in which I can understand this opinion, but I do disagree with it.
I think it's the voice. It's the voice.
Okay,
I think the performance.
You think she's grating, David? you don't like Audrey's voice?
I just the sex that. Okay, so I saw the theatrical cut. I looked into some of the director's cut stuff, but we'll get into that. But in the theatrical cut version, where they go off and they get married at the end,
move into their little house.
I just can't imagine being Rick Moranis and having to fuck that woman every night. With that voice.
Lucky for you, you aren't him, and you don't have to.
Seymour, stick it in my ass.
Anyway,
should we clap so we can know when to cut that out?
Unfortunately, Kelsey, I think that's staying.
And then the singing was throwing me for a loop too, because like you said, it is a pretty big contrast, but it did not compute in my brain. And I feel like her character is the most. I mean, this is a very cheesy, over the top movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I felt like her performance, the voice, the singing, just pushed it way too far.
You don't think Steve Martin is going as hard as she is? Because I would argue he is, and also transcending it.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I'm very tired. I watched this movie this morning. Audrey's high-pitched banshee wail was not the way I wanted to wake up.
Not the vibe this morning.
Not the vibe.
All right.
It was not the cup of Folgers that I needed to wake up.
We'll agree to disagree on that.
David's gonna get some sleep and then come back when he has the right opinion. I think Audrey's fantastic, but also just because like I am sort of a character actor typecast person, and so I'm probably not gonna get like the beautiful singing female lead. I might get Audrey, you know, because I can squeak and scream and like etc. So she's kind of like a dream for like the slightly weird theater gals.
Oh my God, Seymour, your cock is so big.
And that's a nightmare. All right, so let's move on. They do the song "Dadu," which it doesn't have much of an impact on me.
Yeah.
Dadu's cute.
And so between Skid Row and Dadu, in terms of what's happening in the movie, Seymour has Audrey has encouraged Seymour to pull one of his strange and interesting plants from the basement. It's not a euphemism. He actually just has a bunch of plants that he's working on in the basement. And because the plant shop, the florist that they work in, is struggling for business, and they're like, maybe this will drum up some interest. So he brings out this plant. He reveals that it's named Audrey 2.
You named a plant after me.
And then she squeaked that she yeah. Yes, exactly. But the thing that I love here is them like pulling the plant out and putting it in the window.
Oh, the strange and interesting plant.
Yes. And this fucking guy coming in and being like, I couldn't help but notice that strange and interesting plant.
That's Christopher Guest.
I didn't realize that was Christopher Guest until I got to the credits, but I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
So Audrey 2 is a small sort of Venus flytrap-esque plant. Of course, later when the plant grows up, it has teeth, but this current small one does not have teeth. Do you think that Audrey 2 can be used as a fleshlight?
I do think technically...
Because I think Rick Moranis is sticking his dick in this plant's mouth. I think
he did name it Audrey 2.
Exactly!
Yeah.
Great! Okay. We'll get to it. Great movie for plant fuckers. If you have a tentacle kink, if you have a plant fucking kink, this movie is for you.
This is the sound of me walking to my car, getting in, and driving away.
You've listened to the podcast.
I have. I was waiting until later to ask David if he thought something was fuckable in this movie, so I wasn't prepared for it to be now.
Yeah. Clearly he thinks the plant is fuckable. Yeah, I mean, when he cuts his finger and the plant is going with those lips.
Those are some dick-sucking lips.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you could put your cock in this plant.
I don't think it would bite his dick off. I think it would be. I think he'd be okay at this point.
Maybe, but But it needs blood to live. So I feel like it might bite your dick off if you put your dick in there, or it might at least try. Like it might sort of like snap shut on your dick. Mm-hmm. But yeah, maybe in this current form, before it's all toothy and shit, you could get away with it.
Do you think it needs other bodily fluids to live too?
I don't know. David, if what you're asking me is whether the plant from outer space in the film Little Shop of Horrors can subsist on cum, I do not know.
Justice, I am in fact asking you if the plant from outer space in the film Little Shop of Horrors can subsist on cum.
All I know is...
Which does have protein in it.
All I know is it can clearly digest an entire human body, clothes included. So one assumes that cum is not poisonous to it, or indigestible to it. Whether it would see that as food... at this stage in its development is unclear based on the film.
Kelsey, your thoughts?
Sorry, the number you were trying to reach is not in service. So there's a song called Dadu.
Yes.
There's a okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm
also,
just laughing at the situation that we put you in.
The strange and interesting plant guy played by Christopher Guest is really funny.
Yeah.
And also kind of heightens the like theatricality and cheesiness of this film, which only works because it leans into the cheesiness.
Right.
If you tried to like dead serious make a Little Shop it wouldn't work. Like, if you made a 2024 version with, like, CGI and, like, Timothy Chalamet, like, it wouldn't.
Yeah, no.
Because they got to lean into the cheesiness.
Yes, it has to be camp.
Yes. The only thing I have to say about Dadu is I really like the moment there's these guys just, like, harmonizing on the street corner, and Seymour, like, goes up to join in.
I love him trying to join their little doo-wop group and being like, I'm trying to find the beat to snap on. And then he sees the total eclipse of the sun and stares directly at it with no eye protection whatsoever, which you're not supposed to do. A bunch of people stop and look directly at this eclipse, and it just reminded me of that picture of Trump looking at the eclipse. You guys remember that? Remember when he looks directly at an eclipse?
This is the flashback when he goes to Chinatown to get the plant?
Yes.
Yeah. 80s movies also just used to have people going to Chinatown to get something spooky and creepy.
To get something spooky and weird. Gremlins has this as well. Yes.
The whole premise of Big Trouble in Little China is like weird shit's going on in Chinatown.
Yes, which is racist. But I think this movie sort of subverts the worst aspects of it. First of all, by making this sort of like a one moment visual gag and like not spending any time on it. And the shop owner doesn't even say anything. And also because this is a 50s throwback, and I think some of it read to me as this movie is sort of aware that this is like a racial stereotype, and we're playing up that this is like a thing from the 50s, right? But I don't know, maybe I'm being too charitable. Anyway.
He sold him the plant for $1.95.
Yes.
And that's how we get Audrey too.
Also, the plant shows up during an eclipse carried by a bolt of green lightning. Which, when I explained to the podmaster what this movie was about, she was like, how does the plant get there? And I was like, well, an eclipse of the sun happens and it comes from space on a green bolt of lightning. And she was like, that's stupid. and I was like, yeah, that's sort of the point, is that it's stupid. Cause
it's camp.
Yeah, it's camp. Anyway. But yeah.
Great. Yeah, so then there's Dadu. He gets the strange and unusual plant. The Christopher Guest strange and unusual plant guy is like, that is sure a strange and unusual plant. And then he buys a whole bunch of roses. Yes. Which then entices more people to buy roses and plants.
While I'm here, how about I take $50 worth of roses? Can you break 100? I just love every line delivery that Christopher Guest is getting.
Yeah, and then they all go, twice as many.
The fucking gag with the bums on the street outside the window.
Also going, twice as many?
Miming twice as many, but you can't hear them because they're outside, made me laugh so fucking hard. I was losing my shit at that joke. I thought it was very funny.
Yeah. Great. I was going to move to Grow For Me. David, don't. The song is called Grow For Me. It's about a plant growing.
I also feel like it's what I would sing to my penis if I was like really, really drunk and trying to get it up. You know, Whiskey Dick, you've been there, haven't you?
Of course I've been there. I'm 31 years old. You don't think I've ever drank to excess and been unable to perform sexually? What kind of fucking question is that? Yes, David.
Okay, cool.
But in this case, it is about a plant.
It's about a plant, yes. This is an interesting time to mention that Seymour does not have to be a good singer.
Yes.
Which, Rick Moranis is a good singer. There are some Seymours that are like, I've given you plant food and water to sip, just sort of like musical talking. Mm-hmm. It's fine. If you've got a good Audrey and an Audrey too, like your Seymour can just be some guy, which he often is because theaters just can't find men for roles and then just give it to anyone. That's not a jab. AJ, that's not about you. Please. You were wonderful in this production in which I was also with you. So in the stage production, I played this small version of the plant, which is fun and silly because you usually cannot see anything that's going on stage. So Seymour put the plant in a hole. I put my hand in the puppet, and then I just had to wait for the musical cues to like open the plant's mouth. And this, I'm doing it right now. You can't see me, but this is how I explain it, which is
so
fun.
Were you also singing?
No.
Or?
It was just Seymour singing, and it was just me listening to the music to like know when to open the plant's mouth and stuff. Yeah. The little, God, see now I was gonna say the little limp plant is so cute, but I feel like David's gonna be like, it's more fuckable when it's limp.
Let me be clear. I do not want to have sexual intercourse with the plant.
You're just
I'm just saying.
if someone were so inclined.
If someone wanted to, if it, you know, your fleshlight was at the cleaners.
You just don't want to kink shame.
I don't want to kink shame. I just want to know if you stick your dick in it, is it gonna bite it off?
Okay. Yeah.
And also, would it be, warm and comforting and replicate the feeling of a vagina?
So it's starting to sound more and more like you do, in fact, want to fuck the plant.
I don't want to fuck the plant.
Well-
I really don't want to fuck the plant.
Methinks the lady doesn't protest too much.
At this point, the plant is the size of like a little Brussels sprout. So
Yes.
keep that in mind. Also, one thing I noted, I fucking hate kissy noises.
Yeah.
And most of this song is just Seymour and the plant making kissy noises.
It is fucking revolting when he pricks his finger on the "What do you want from me, blood?" Right?
Yeah.
And then he puts the tip of his finger in his mouth, and he's like, and I was like, can you fucking quit that? Like, it's like making my skin crawl. Which I just did for our listeners intentionally.
Yeah.
But it's fucking the sound of him fucking on his finger is like so heavy in the mix. I was like,
Yeah, it's awful. I often skip this song just because I'm like, I can't tolerate it.
Yeah.
But when the little Audrey 2, who has finally gotten a taste of blood, then begins to revive and grow bigger, there's this like sick ass organ playing in the background, which the organ is kind of Audrey 2's instrument.
Yeah.
And like anytime you hear some like jazzy ass organ, you're like, ooh, something's happening with Audrey 2. And I really like that. There's not enough organ in musicals. I think the word organ should, the musical instrument, the organ. David, what are your thoughts?
he's just sitting there.
I'm just sitting here.
Okay,
hanging out.
okay. I'm gonna stop looking at David's part of the table.
That fucked up. Okay. I'm
yeah.
just saying, if you stuck your dick in the little Audrey 2 and tore it asunder.
Woo! Yeah, so Grow For Me is a song. Also, it's a lot of like Seymour's very thick like accent.
Yeah.
What is it Bostonian? Is that what they're doing?
I think he's trying to do a New York thing. It's just really not.
It's
Correct.
It's very shucks gee willikers kind of thing.
I've
you
given
know?
you plant food and water to sip.
Yeah, it's definitely like he's doing like the kind of the New York Jewish kind of like nebbishy thing. I think is he's talking like he's in like a Neil Simon play.
Yeah.
Like he's in fucking Biloxi Blues or some shit.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then after Grow For Me, we get Seymour's appearance on Wink Wilkinson's Weird World, which is a radio production. And John Candy just gets to chew the scenery for like
Fucking the
a
great
minute
John
and 27
Candy.
seconds.
I love John Candy in this movie.
I was so happy to see him. I also love so there's he's Seymour's sitting in like the waiting room, and there's a guy sitting with a nun blow-up doll that has a saxophone in its mouth, and then an older gentleman who just looks like he walked off the set of Mad Max.
Yeah.
He has like biker goggles on and all of this shit on. He looks like like the gyro captain or something from Mad Max 2.
Yeah, it's the World of the Living version of the waiting room in Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Basically, is what we have going on here, where it's just like a bunch of fucking very visually interesting weirdos.
Yeah.
And Seymour's there with his plant, which is trying to take a big bite out of this juicy butt.
Oh, I was thinking Seymour, not Seymour. I keep getting the names mixed up in my head. Fuck.
Audrey
Yeah.
2.
I was thinking Audrey 2 was gonna give that woman a rim job.
Again, I think mostly what it's after is blood.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily.
You don't think the plant eats ass?
I don't think the plant eats ass. I don't think the plant is interested in sexual Well, later it does sort of try to like lift Audrey's skirt and shit. There is definitely a moment where it seems like the plant is horny.
The plant is really
Correct.
horny in
Yeah.
this.
And the plant, so
There
I
are
don't know.
vines growing and wrapping around people. I mean, come on.
Yeah, maybe. If anything, it seems to have a vor kink, but not like being consumed. Like it's
Yeah, I mean, I think Audrey 2's down for anything and everything.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe it was trying to eat this woman's ass, but I thought it was like trying to literally eat this woman's ass. Like I thought it was trying to take like a big old like chomp out of this big juicy butt. that is in its face in this waiting room. And it's a funny gag. It's a funny gag when this plant tries to bite this woman's butt.
Yes.
It's also very funny that like Seymour brought his visually stunning plant onto a radio show.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that this whole radio show is about like weird people, and everyone that's on the set of this is visually very weird for something that is an audio format.
Yeah. It's very much Hot Rod. Have y'all seen that? That was my second option for wanting to talk about a movie on this podcast.
I haven't seen Hot Rod, and I really should.
Hot Rod is one of my favorite movies. But there's a long bit in there about like how a radio station buys the rights to talking about this motorcycle jump, and he's like, "If you could see this, you'd be amazed."
I mean, is that not what we are doing?
Yeah, we are audio describing a film right now.
We have a movie podcast.
David continually mentions
so
how the plant is sexy.
We're in a glass house here.
I'm not saying the plant's sexy.
Yeah. So they do this radio show.
The horses in Prince of Egypt are sexy.
Yes, the plant though.
Yeah.
Plant though,
Yeah. You did say it, and I quote, "dick sucking lips."
I was going to move on to talk
I feel
about
like
somewhere
I'm being
that's green.
judged very heavily in this episode, and I've done nothing wrong.
I think maybe you having a different opinion on Ellen Greene's performance just created an antagonistic relationship between Kelsey and I and you, so now we're just attacking you. Anyway, we're all friends here. We're having a fun time.
Yeah. Did you have more thoughts about things between John Candy and the song "Somewhere That's Green"?
No,
but John Candy fucking rocks.
Yes,
yeah, he's great,
and he does great in this little bit part.
And he's got an insane swoop of hair going on. He's great. Okay, so "Somewhere That's Green," getting back to my musical theater theory, there's a song called an I Want song. I Want songs are the songs that most people know from musicals because they tend to be the ones that get famous and performed a bunch, even outside of the context of a musical, like I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables. Susan Boyle got real famous for singing that on whatever show that was.
Sorry, I was laughing at the
dog
sneeze.
Yes. And then like Part of Your World from Little Mermaid is another classic I Want song. And a lot of I Want songs, they have like big wants, like Part of Your World. She wants to literally become a different species. I Just Can't Wait to Be King from Lion King. He wants to be the king. Roxy from Chicago. She wants to be famous. What makes Somewhere That's Green probably one of the most brilliant I Want songs is because all she wants is like a little house with a toaster and a husband who's happy to do yard work.
Yeah.
And some TV dinner.
Yeah. And it's really poignantly sad because of that. Because it's like they live in this place where we had a whole song about how Skid Row's a shitty place to live. And the thing that she's aspiring to your point, is like very normal and kind of white bread middle America shit, right? She doesn't have this big, huge dream. It's something that is very like down to earth. It's also something that's being sold to her. Like everything in the Somewhere That's Green sequence is this like 50s facade of it's like an I Love Lucy set.
Yes.
You know, in a way that is more artificial even than some of the Skid Row soundstage stuff. It like, and when they, in the theatrical ending, when they go into the house, it looks really, really artificial.
Yes.
It is, I think, pretty much just the same house.
Yes.
The same set from this musical sequence.
And that struck me this time, now that I'm a little older than the first time I watched this movie, as pretty like cutting satire kind of, where it's like, oh yeah, like the thing that like one of the characters in this impoverished neighborhood in this movie is aspiring toward is like a dream that is being sold to them by the ruling class and being like, this is what you should want.
Yes.
And she has like fallen for it. And so she's like, well, that sounds better than what I have. And it's like, is it though?
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of why I think the theatrical ending of this movie sucks, but we'll get to that. But would you believe that this movie has a Justice Cry count? Kelsey and David.
I would believe that because the Kelsey cry count's pretty high.
Oh yeah? You cry watching this movie?
Because I connect so deeply to Audrey, like hearing Somewhere That's Green, because though Ellen Greene can scream sing, this is like she's really employing her like little baby girl voice when she sings this song. And it's just like, she sound like the background music sounds like a little music box ballerina, and it's just like so touching.
Yeah.
The second the opening notes of this song come on, waterworks. So when did the Justice Cry count begin for
Well,
this?
I will tell you, the reason I bring it up now is because I cried during Somewhere That's Green, which took me by surprise. I was like, why am I crying to something that's green from Little Shop of Horrors, or someplace that's green from Little Shop of Horrors? Like, what's wrong with me? But it really got me this time, because I was thinking about all that stuff where it's like, man, this is really bleak, actually, if
Yes.
you think about it. It's like really, really dark.
Yeah.
If you think about how what she is trying to achieve is just like the lowest common denominator of like life in this country for a lot of people.
And she can only dream of what she can see in these Better Homes and Gardens magazines that she has. Like, her dreams cannot extend further than that, because she is in such a destitute place that it's like, unless I can see it in a magazine.
Yes, unless it is being
I
sold
don't
to
even
me,
think it
right?
exists.
Yeah, unless it's being marketed to me.
Yes.
And like the fact that her dreams aren't any bigger than advertisements
Yes.
is really sad.
It is sad.
And it made me cry. So that's, normally when we do the Justice Cry count, you're supposed to guess how many times I cried watching the movie. I guess.
Okay,
I
sorry.
guess that's what we do.
I didn't guess.
Well, I don't fucking
Was that the only time you cried?
It was not.
Oh God.
Woo! Okay.
And it's important to note, I watched the director's cut of this film.
Mm.
I did not watch the theatrical cut. I watched the theatrical ending separately in
Okay.
preparation for the podcast. But I watched my preferred version, which is
Yes.
the director's cut version, which influences the cry count.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And I just like, it's a beautifully done sequence. It's also really cool because they're taking advantage of the medium of film. Because if you're doing this on stage, really all you can do is just have Audrey kind of like slip her arm out of her little bespoke cast that she has made out of a gauzy little thing, which is so funny.
Her fucking little lace or like silky little cast
Yeah.
is so funny.
But in the movie, you can give a whole new sound set, and like she's got all these beautiful outfits, and there's like a Tupperware party and everything.
I love the shot of her like worshipping the toaster.
Yes, she caresses the toaster with
And
both
I love
hands.
she's dreaming about the kids. Is it the sequence where she's picturing her and Seymour having kids, and the kids
Yes,
look just like
they
them?
look
Yes.
exactly like
Yeah.
them. Yes, there's animated birds that fly in, which
Yeah, the animated birds are nice.
God, I'm a sucker for animated birds. They throw those into my favorite TV show of all time, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, as well, and I'm like, God damn, these animated birds. Also, one thing that I in particular love is that in her wildest fantasy, she and her husband have separate beds.
Yes.
And I was like, that fucks. That's my dream.
Yes.
Separate rooms, separate states would be ideal for me, but the separate beds is a nice touch for Audrey. David, what are your thoughts about this song?
I thought it was a good song.
Yeah.
A good moment from the film. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of this character, as we've previously established, but I thought this was really well done. And I like it does add a lot of sadness to her, where it's like she has this quaint little dream, and that's the highest thing that she can aspire to.
Yeah.
You said the word scream singing, and I was thinking maybe I would like Audrey more if she was played by Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
He writes and trims the grass. He loves to mow away.
I'm really glad you yes-anded that, Kelsey, because I was not prepared to sing like Brian Johnson. Yes. And then, so from there, we more or less go into the, okay, now, like, the fucking shop is getting a bunch of business.
Work less for renovation.
right.
But yes.
Which thankfully is not in this film.
This sequence where he is feeding the plant and it's getting bigger. They have the song Some Fun Now, which is almost exactly like the original song You Never Know from the musical. They just change like the chorus of it. And I think Some Fun Now is actually more menacing than You Never Know. Because You Never Know is like, it's a little bit cuter sounding. It's them kind of being like, oh my gosh, Seymour found success. And then in this one, they're like, oh, you're having some fun now as you like let this plant bleed you dry. Like, aren't you having a great time? Also, I really like that the doo-wop girls are just like vibing while Seymour's like continually offering his blood to the plant, and they're like, some fun now. There's
Also,
something menacing about that.
around here, I think it's like maybe slightly before Some Fun Now, or we maybe see some of it like during this song, but we've been in Audrey's character introduction. She like comes in with a black eye, and Mr. Mushnick is giving her guff about this boyfriend of hers who's beaten on her, right? And is like, oh, like, you should really dump that guy. And she's like, he's got a good job and he's the only guy I got and all that stuff. And around here, we actually see him for the first time.
The song Dentist plays right after Some Fun Now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. But we've seen more of her, like her arm's broken from him and stuff. And in Some Fun Now, I was thinking about it this time, and I was like, this is maybe the first time it occurred to me, and this is like an obvious surface level observation about this story, but I had it for the first time because I haven't engaged with Little Shop all that much throughout my life. It's just a thing I've seen once or twice, right? Where I was like, oh, both of the leads are in abusive relationships. Mm-hmm. And that is like, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of a really interesting story that we're telling here, is that both of them are being like physically abused by their partner, right?
Yes.
And they're like seeking sort of comfort and solace in each other, which made the stuff with Oren and Audrey work better for me when I saw it as a parallel to the stuff with Audrey 2 and Seymour. And I was like, oh, we're not just having her character be defined by abuse because like she's a female character and she needs to be saved or whatever. It's like both of them are defined by abuse, right? And we're like putting these stories next to each other because they're the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
Is sort of an interesting kind of thing that I was noticing this time. But yeah.
Very true.
Anyway.
And then we get the song Dentist, where we really get to see the dentist character. So this is another like archetype of musical theater, is the villain song, which is often a lot of people's favorite song. Where think about Be Prepared from Lion King, or Herod's song from Jesus Christ Superstar.
Or Dark Fire.
Yes.
Hellfire.
Literally my next one is Hellfire.
Probably my favorite Disney song of all time from anything.
Yes. So the villain songs are iconic.
What's that from?
It's from Hunchback of Notre Dame, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Gypsy, it's your turn.
I'm a big Be Prepared guy myself.
Yeah.
Choose me or your pyre.
I'll stop.
Yeah. So they are iconic songs.
Yes, and this was I don't know like my favorite song, but my favorite part of this movie is insane Steve Martin as a biker / dentist.
Yes.
Can we have a spin-off movie about this character is my question to Hollywood.
I feel like a canon horror film, like a canon grade, like a B grade horror film, where this guy, we just follow sadist dentist, would be perfect. And make it a musical too, fuck it.
Yeah.
Also, welcome back to the show, Steve Martin, in your second musical appearance on The Greatest
yeah.
Movie Ever Made, because he's also in Prince of
Oh,
Egypt.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I fucking love this song.
Yes.
It's so funny.
One thing, like context for me, is I absolutely abhor violence.
Yeah.
These two can attest. We did a fight choreography rehearsal the other day. Fake fights with really nice people fake fighting. And I couldn't look at it.
Yeah.
But I love this movie and this character who literally punches women in the face.
Yes.
Because you're at no moment are you ever supposed to be like, I think this is kind of a good guy. He's awful. He's over the top. He's evil. He's Elvis also a little bit for some reason.
Yes.
And
this is what I was talking about with the broadness of his performance. He's doing like 3 different voices,
yes.
and he's not committing to any of them. And I'm like, yes, I love it. Perfect.
yes.
But I fucking love him just opening the door to this dentist practice, taking his leather jacket off, and just socking this woman in the fucking face.
It's great. And I laugh at that. I'm like, that's a man punching a woman, but it works.
It can be funny when it is done correctly.
Yes.
I love all of his dentistry instruments, I guess.
Sturdy, heavy,
That-
dull.
They look like the crazy, insane gynecological instruments from Dead Ringers that that Jeremy Irons makes. They're like Cronenbergian dentist instruments.
Yes, and later when Bill Murray sees one of them and gets a throbbing erection.
Yeah, you mean when Bill Murray has an orgasm during his dental cleaning?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but this song is very fun. It's like very like fucking 50s rock and roll.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just the idea of like this is a the lyrics tell the story of him as a kid, like torturing small animals.
Yes.
So his natural career choice was to become a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny and clever joke.
I fucking love when he goes into the little closet in his office,
Mom.
and there's a shrine to his mother. The shrine to his mother is maybe my favorite purely visual gag in this movie. It's so much design too. There's like 1,000 candles and like a bunch of like string lights and the portrait of her. Like the lighting totally changes when he goes into it, and I'm like, I love chef's kiss, all of this. It's so fucking funny.
They committed, yes. And also...
the little organ thing, and then him just doing the, oh, mom.
And what other song has ever been written that name drops the Marquis de Sade? You
Yeah,
know? The doo-wop girls are like, who wants their teeth done by the Marquis de Sade?
Yes.
Amazing. Incredible. We
He
love
also,
dentists.
we are introduced to his nitrous oxide habit in this
Yes.
scene, which is important because it'll come back.
Also, the point of view shot inside a mouth.
Oh, yeah.
That effect is so good.
And then the mouth sings the backup line
Yes.
to the song.
And it's muffled.
And it moves and is muffled. It's crazy. Yeah. I love that shot.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The dentist is fantastic. So he has a really good villain song. I'm a sucker for an Elvis number that randomly shows up in a musical, like Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Yeah, the Pharaoh is Elvis for some reason.
Or when Meatloaf rides a motorcycle out of a freezer and wreck, or sings the best song in the movie and then gets fucking murdered.
Yeah, give us more Elvis songs. So before there's the Bill Murray dentist scene, which we're gonna talk about, then we get the song "Feed Me" (parentheses Get It) by the Plant, and
This
so
is my favorite song in the movie.
yeah, "Feed Me" rocks. Y'all know who the voice is of the Plant?
It's Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops.
He sure is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and boy, do they take advantage of that
Yeah.
because he has just like this rich, bassy, groovy, jazzy voice, and they're like, all right, cool, what if the Plant just like rocked?
Yeah. And he also, like, his vocal range is insane because, like, mostly he's singing in, like this bass or baritone register, but he also can do, like, these, like, high, he does that high, like, squeak and squeal thing a bunch,
Yes.
and it's so good.
One particular girl. Well, I think that's
How
in
about
Separate
that?
Time.
Oh!
Yeah.
Pretty. Yeah.
This is another case where, like the Shakespeare lines I mentioned earlier, characters are singing the same line, which means they are in agreement.
Yeah.
Because as the Plant convinces Seymour to do these hideous acts, Seymour starts singing the same line as him, which means, oh, I'm on the same page as you, man. The guy does sure look like plant food to me.
Gosh, sure looks like plant food to me. It's such an effective like turning point for the character when he's like, the Feed Me song starts and he's basically like, yeah, bring me people to eat, and he's like, no, like, I'm a good person, I'm not gonna do that. And then you see Steve Martin pull up on his motorcycle, like, yell at Audrey. She goes into the apartment.
I'm sorry, doctor.
I'm sorry, sorry, doctor. But then, like, there's, like, them in silhouette, and he slaps her, and he turns back to the Plant and is just like, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, no, like, I get it. And, like, you're on his side. You're on, like, the Plant's side at that point in the movie, and I'm like, it's very effective. I think it works very well.
And the effects, the puppetry is...
Incredible.
Yeah, it's insane.
We should talk about this fucking puppet.
So this puppet is, first of all, just very well... articulated, like the articulation on the mouth and everything. But part of what makes this effect work so well is they're articulating the puppet at like half speed, and Rick Moranis is in front of the puppet acting in slow motion, so that when they speed up the footage later, it looks very smooth and very seamless.
Yes.
And it is so good. It, like, you don't even think about it with how good it is.
Yes. And it's, this is like its intermediate stage. It gets fucking enormous.
Yes.
And they just built this huge plant puppet. Like, it's just actually enormous.
Yes.
And took, like, a whole team of puppeteers to control. And there's animatronics as well. Like, it's just, it's puppeteering craft on such, like, a high level. Both, like, high skill, high budget. Like, it's crazy that they pulled this off. And that it looks... Like, the whole time, it looks like a real thing that's just moving and talking.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the director's cut, specifically, like, the final, like, 6 minutes of the
Holy
director's
shit.
cut has, which we'll talk about, has a movie's worth of these puppetry effects in there. And I'm just furious
Yes.
that they robbed a theatrical audience of this.
Zero of the scenes in the director's cut ending look bad in any way. They all look incredible, right? Like 6 minutes of immaculate effects work that they cut from this movie. Like, it's not like they cut anything that looked janky or you know you could see the wires or anything. It's like, no, all of it is incredible, and they fucking cut it all. Anyway, but anytime this puppet is bebopping and scatting through this movie,
amazing.
I'm like, it's insane, it's incredible. I fucking love looking at this thing so much. You can also tell they were really proud of the inside of this thing's mouth. Yeah. Because they do so many close-up shots on it.
Yes, and it's warning if you watch this movie for the first time and you have trypophobia, like I do, which is the fear of closely clustered holes.
Yes, the Podmaster has that as well.
Yes, the inside of this thing's mouth, like its little like sinews or whatever, look away. Just do yourself a favor. Yeah. Just don't look in there.
Yeah. Anytime the camera starts going towards its open mouth, just make it peace out for a second. Yeah.
But this is another case where the movie takes advantage of the fact that it's a movie to showcase more of like the special effects with the plant. Like, it's hopping up and down. Because in the stage productions, that's just a guy in there. And in most cases, it's a guy whose legs are the plant's legs and his arms are the plant's mouth. So all you can really do is plant, open, close, 1-2 root, move a little.
Yeah. But this thing's like lips are articulating enough that you can distinguish the different words it's saying. It's so good.
Yeah. In the stage version, is the actor portraying Seymour in the costume, are they also singing, or is someone off stage singing?
There's a separate voice for Audrey too, because inside the plant it's like 1,000 degrees. You have to be like wearing an ice pack and like getting in there a second before the plant is revealed on stage.
Right.
Because
so
otherwise
it's just a physical performance on stage, and then off stage there's a guy with a mic.
Yes. And usually the plant is played by at least 4 different puppeteers in the musical production, where the small one is what I did, where it's just a single hand. The like intermediate stage during Some Fun Now is usually Seymour himself. There's a fake arm, and his arm is puppeteering the little puppet. And then once it gets bigger, it's like 1 to 2 people inside in the very thankless role of being inside a hot felt thing for the remainder of the play.
Yeah.
Yes, the plant's amazing. How about this dentist scene with Bill Murray? Thoughts on this?
Yeah. My fucking God. So first of all, just holy shit. Bill Murray just showing up in this movie. Yeah. I'm sure his name was in the credits and I missed it.
He's incredible as usual.
Yeah. And the whole concept of this scene is Bill Murray goes to the dentist because it makes him horny. He has a dentist kink.
He is a masochist. So like we've established that Steve Martin's character, Oren, is a sexual sadist. That is why he is in dentistry, and also why he beats up his girlfriend and handcuffs her. And there is a very dark joke, by the way, where someone asks Audrey, like, why she's late or whatever. Like, did you get tied up? And she's like, no, just handcuffed a little.
Yeah.
Which is like... on the one hand, it's like horrible because she's in an abusive relationship. That being said, I did laugh at that joke.
I also laughed at when... I think a little bit earlier here, when she keeps saying sorry, doctor.
Yes,
to him.
that is, it's simultaneously upsetting and also maybe one of my favorite jokes of the movie.
Yeah, because I can imagine if I had a doctorate and I was in a relationship that had some sort of power dynamic, hopefully a consensual one.
Yes.
I can imagine that I'd get off.
If you
get off on me calling doctor.
If you're into S&M, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you and your partner set clear boundaries.
Yes.
And everything is consensual. But yes, it is like he's making her call him sir,
or
but
daddy.
Instead of sir or daddy, right? Yeah. But instead of that, it's doctor, which is, and I love when she introduces him to Seymour, and she's like, "This is Oren
Scrivello, DDS."
Yeah, it's so funny that she has to add the DDS. It's so good. So anyway, so it's been established that he's a sexual sadist. And then, yes, Bill Murray's character is a sexual masochist. He has come to be the bottom to Oren's top, without Oren's knowledge or consent, right? Which, it's funny that we're just flipping the script on this guy here and being like, yeah, it's not so fun when someone, like, sexually uses you without your consent, right? Which is what he's been doing with Audrey. And also, it's fucking hilarious. This scene is so good.
It is.
Yeah, I felt like I was losing my mind watching this shit. It was just like, oh, that's Bill Murray himself getting his rocks off, having dental instruments shoved into his mouth.
I love when Steve Martin tells him to like come back and like sit in the chair or whatever, and he's just like, "Yes, doctor."
Yeah.
Well, and as he's pulling out these, like, again, horrible Cronenbergian instruments that have spikes on them for no reason, he's just like, oh God.
And then he starts, because he comes in and he's like, I need a root canal. I need, like, a real long, painful root canal. But I love when he, like, starts actually, like, doing shit in there. And he's just moaning. Like... It is as if he is being fucked. And I love that Seymour's in the waiting room listening. Yeah. And you can hear Bill Murray through the door being like, oh, doctor, yes, oh!
Seymour's here, of course, with a gun.
Yes.
To shoot Oren.
Yes,
and feed him to the plant.
Yes.
Which is very fun. And then at some point...
Bill Murray grosses... Oren out.
Yeah.
Which I love. I also love the moment where he's like fucking moving his mouth with the little mouth divider things. And he's like, you know what I appreciate about you is your professionalism.
Well, I also like, there's so much about this scene. It's like the Zapruder film. Just loop this scene over and over and we'll study it forever.
It's like the Zapruder film.
When Bill Murray starts taking like cotton balls out of his suit, and he has like the bib that you wear, like he's getting all set up to sit back in this dentist chair, like he's brought his little kit with him.
And I also love that he like came from another dentist who he sees, who is like visually impaired, and you just have to tell her where the shit is, right? And she'll just drill it. And so he's like, but then he heard about Oren and has visited him specifically because he knows that this guy is like the dentist who will hurt him the most.
Yep.
It's just so funny that he's like, I'm gonna have the biggest nut of my life. I finally found the one. But yeah, so when they finish up the dentist appointment, right?
Because he's gripped his shoulder.
Yes, yeah.
That draws Oren Scrivello over the line.
Yes.
Is when his masochistic patient grips his shoulder in orgasmic ecstasy.
Yes.
And then he's like, hang on now.
Yes, he's like, I think this guy's coming his pants. Holy, he's got great balls of fire. He's creamed his jeans.
See, you judge me for asking if you can fuck the little Venus flytrap plant, but this movie itself asks the question, what if there was a guy who was really, really horny about the dentist? So I don't think I'm crossing any lines that Frank Oz and presumably the writers of the original musical have crossed themselves.
Is this scene in the musical?
No.
This was only for the movie.
It's a callback to the like non-musical film that the musical was based on. But in the stage play, this whole sequence is just the song "It's Just the Gas," which is where Oren puts on his gas mask and dies. And that's another case where like it's a good song, but it's very musical theater. And like Seymour has a breakdown in the middle that's like, what we have here is an ethical dilemma as to helping with the mask, and then he doesn't have a prayer. And it's like, what? Huh? You want to run that by me again? So I feel like that was a smart move in the movie's part to be like, instead of that really musical number, let's have Bill Murray
get a big old boner about getting a root canal. Yeah, and I love Oren like getting freaked out because this guy's too into it.
Yes.
And he's like, I think this guy's fucking using me to nut, and I don't like how that feels. So then he's like, get out of here. And I love when Bill Murray leaves, I love Steve Martin's delivery of freaking sicko or whatever he says about him. Yeah.
And then he drags Seymour in.
Yeah.
And is like, Seymour, this would be scary for you, right? And Seymour's like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like all excited again, and he puts on his gas mask.
His special gas mask, because now he's going to get his
yes,
nut.
which is absolutely...
Like, that guy really riled me up, and now I'm horny as fuck.
Yes.
Frank Booth
but I can't nut unless somebody is not liking it.
Frank Booth watched this movie and watched this gas mask contraption and was like, I gotta call up an engineer or something to get one of these made.
Yes. Steve Martin and Steve Martin's character, Oren Scrivello.
Yes.
And,
DDS.
Frank Booth, definitely two sides of the same coin.
Daddy wants to fuck!
I'll drill anything that moves!
And then in Oren's case, Doctor wants to fuck!
Doctor wants to fuck! Have you seen Blue Velvet?
No, but
You would hate it.
yeah. So it has been pronounced. Yeah.
Well, you were just saying you don't like violence.
Yeah, that's true.
That
That's true.
that film is packed full of violence against women.
Oh, okay.
The protagonist of it ends up doing violence against women, and you're supposed to kind of have not fully concrete feelings about it. You're kind of supposed to have here and there feelings about it. I just
Yeah,
feel like it was
okay.
not
Yeah.
maybe not a Kelsey Hontz.
Yeah.
But the center of the Venn diagram that includes Little Shop of Horrors on one side and Blue Velvet on the other is the antagonist is a sexual sadist who gets off on huffing oxygen.
Nitrous oxide.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in this contraption that he's just huffing his nitrous oxide, so he's a better time. This is another case where like stage productions sometimes just have really stupid looking gas masks because they have to be like safe enough for the actor to sing and move around in, and you know, theater safety. But in this case, movie magic. Like
Yeah.
Steve Martin could have ripped that shit off if it
I
was a
love
problem.
these little black balloons that
Yes.
are inflating on the sides of it. It's very fun.
It is very fun. So then he gets a little too high. He can't remove the gas mask, and instead of Seymour shooting him with a gun that he brought, he just collapses and suffocates to death on nitrous oxide. And in the musical, his last line is, "It really is an awful way to go," which is very true. Horrible way for him to die. And the last like interaction he has with Seymour is he's like, "Is this what did I ever do to you?" And Seymour's like, "Nothing. It's what you did to her." And then Scrivello goes, "Her? Oh, her," and then dies.
Yeah.
And then we have suddenly motherfucking Seymour.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts about this song.
All right. Let's hear them.
Okay, so back to the musical theater theory. This is the big love song or duet that is also, it's typically like the second most famous song from a musical, such as I See the Light from Tangled, All I Ask of You from Phantom of the Opera, A Whole New World from Aladdin. Here we have Suddenly Seymour.
Can you feel
Yes.
the love tonight?
Also that.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's a unique case because the characters are not singing it. It's
Right,
just
yeah.
Elton John being like, "Aren't these lions horny?"
This lion wants to fuck this other lion.
Yes. That's
If we
that.
ever do Lion King, I have some thoughts about Nala.
I am absolutely
no.
positive you do. Yes.
So
Color me whatever the exact opposite of surprised is.
I don't think
Yeah.
I'm alone on that one.
No.
I don't. I think
You're in good company.
I think this is the one where I might be like I might have some people on my side.
Yeah. I bet you're not alone in the snake from Rango either.
Oh,
I bet other
yeah.
people
Hey,
wanted to fuck that.
you're not. The Bill Nighy snake?
Yes.
Yeah. You're not alone.
Okay.
Anyway, so Suddenly Seymour is the big love song duet, and this is it begins when Audrey's very upset with herself because she hasn't seen Oren Scrivello, DDS, for a few days. Also, you want to know where she met him? In the gutter. It's a nightclub I used to work at.
That is such a fucking funny joke.
That was a good joke.
In the gutter. The gutter? It's a nightclub.
Yes.
A night spot.
And so she's upset, and then this is Seymour basically saying like, "Well, I'm here for you." He's not necessarily revealing like, "I'm the one who killed your boyfriend," but he's saying, "I'm here for you, and I'll always be here for you." And what I love about this song, I'm not crazy about Seymour's first verse because
Yes,
his whole deal is like, "I just really like girls better without their makeup."
It is very Hamlet fucking painted face coded.
Yeah.
That whole shit that he has about being like, women trick men by putting on faces that don't look like their faces.
Wash off your mascara.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
she can have her mascara and still, anyway.
Yes.
And so then, he's Rick Moranis singing, which is like nice, relatively quiet singing. Ellen Greene said, fuck that. What if I screamed? So she has her verse where she's like talking about nobody ever treated me kindly. And it's very sad. And then when they come together to sing the chorus of Suddenly Seymour, this is when we had to do the mic test to make sure I can belt this. So this is what's insane about her performance, because you could sing it real pretty like, Suddenly Seymour. No, she's like, Suddenly Seymour. And like, that sells it.
Yeah.
It just sells it for me. I also love that a lot of the song is about friendship and not necessarily like, we're horny for each other now, as you get in a lot of musical theater like love duets.
Yeah.
Because she's not totally there yet. Her boyfriend has disappeared mysteriously and she's had a rough life and she's like, I don't know if I can trust this man.
Right.
And they're friends. What, both of you have
I think it's
thoughtful looks.
I think it's a good song. It makes sense that why they bring it back multiple times throughout the film. It's one of the good themes of the movie, and if Brian Johnson were singing it, it would sound like
Suddenly Seymour. Oh.
Yeah, I mean it's an iconic number from this
Yes.
movie. It's not one of my favorites, and it was not one of my favorites on this watch again. I think the first verse from Seymour, like we talked about, it really throws me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I really don't like how we get into this.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is like nice, but I'm like, it's kind of colored by the fact that, first of all, Seymour's a bad person.
Yeah.
He's and like, this is one of the reasons that I like the director's cut so much better than the theatrical cut of this movie. Because Seymour is not a good person. He has an unrequited crush, at least when the play begins, on a woman who is in a relationship. He murders her boyfriend and then swoops in to comfort her about the loss of this man who he killed, right? And I know he doesn't kill him technically, but he went in there with the intent to.
Yeah.
And regardless, he dismembered him and fed him to a plant. Right? And this number is happening after all of that.
Yes.
And the audience knows all of it. So I'm like, I kind of don't know that I'm thrilled for Audrey, who is the character who I feel the most empathy for in this show, that she is getting closer to this man who I think is objectively bad. Right? And the song is very triumphant and very like, oh, it's so beautiful that these people are like closer now. And I'm like, is it though? Because I kind of think he's bad for her. And the director's cut ending of this movie makes that work for me better.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, the movie knows that he was bad for her, right? Whereas the theatrical cut ending, I'm like, this undercuts some of the feelings that the movie that I was watching, gave me, right? Anyway.
The live version does also have more verses from Seymour where he is like conflicted about the ethics of everything.
Yeah.
And the movie is a little bit more like, nah, like Seymour's just doing what he's got to do.
No, I think everything he did was right, and the only crime that he committed was robbing me of a sequel featuring Oren.
I kind of don't give a shit
Oren Unleashed.
if he's conflicted about the ethics of what he's doing, because I'm sort of like, yeah, you can like feel bad about dismembering people and feeding them to a man-eating plant, but you're still, at the end of the day, fucking doing it. So like, spare me the fucking, oh, poor me, pity
Yeah, that's
party,
true.
right? Because I'm like, no, you still are fucking dismembering people with a hatchet, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
One element that I don't care for too much in Suddenly Seymour is the song crescendos with like, learn how to be more the girl who's inside me. And that phrase always gives me the ick. I don't want to explore the girl who's inside me.
Yeah.
What's she doing in there and can she get out? Like, and then it's a little harder to hear in the movie version, but in the stage version, the doo-wop girls have really sick harmonies on this. But yeah, and then like it concludes with them just like scream singing in each other's faces, which is really fun when you do it live because your Audrey just has to be like blowing out Seymour's eardrums with her extremely high belts. And then sometimes they kiss, sometimes they don't. And then Mr. Mushnick discovers little red dots all over linoleum. And he knows Seymour's been up to some shit.
I love that he's just waiting. He's just lurking in a corner of Seymour's basement that
Yes.
he sleeps in. This movie does have a little bit of horror sensibility to it. It's mostly aped from like the 50s pulp horror stuff. So there's not actually moments in this movie, I would say, that are actually scary. But I do like Seymour like laying down and then this just like shadowy silhouette entering the hallway and you being like, oh fuck, he's going to sleep and there's just like some guy there. And then it's Mr. Mushnick being like, I know what you fucking did. I saw you.
Yes.
So, you know, Seymour is in a pickle here. His boss knows that he's been dismembering bodies. That's an issue.
Yes. And the song Supper Time plays, which is basically a rehash of Get It. But Get It was kind of like, there's still like a choice for you, Seymour, and that's like a lot more up-tempo. And then Supper Time is like slower and darker. And a really interesting thing that the doo-wop girls are doing here with their voices is they're scooping their notes, which, for example, they sing the word supper time, and you could sing it like supper time, but they're going supper time and like scooping under it, which is like a way to entice somebody. Like they're vocally drawing Seymour in to doing this and getting louder and louder as the song goes on. And you only see bits of the doo-wop girls. You see them silhouetted in the glass.
I
you
really
see their
like the
gloves.
shots of them through when they come out of the alley. Like they're obscured in darkness and then they emerge out of the alley and they're lit through the window.
Yeah,
I really love those shots. Good.
And then they sort of, I think they also like sink back into the
at
alley.
the end of the
Yes.
song they fade back into the alley.
Yeah,
It's really good.
those are good shots.
Yeah, because they're not necessarily like there to judge the morality of what's happening. They're there to just tell the story. But this is a case where like, oh, you don't even get to see like your little friends, the doo-wop girls, the whole time because it's like a dark, scary moment.
Right. It's like when Gonzo and Rizzo fuck off at the end of Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
This is the serious part of the movie. Your goofy little friends are not here to help you.
Yeah.
Good song. And
he gets eated.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Mr. Mushnick gets consumed, yes. Because Seymour like backs him up into the plant's mouth, basically. And this is where Audrey 2 just starts devouring people whole, clothes and all.
Yes.
So presumably...
Come and all.
Yes,
one
presumably
might say.
come and all.
Yikes.
Popping testicles in his mouth like grapes.
Like boba. And then it's basically another success montage for Seymour.
The meek shall inherit, which is where we start to get divergences between the theatrical cut and the director's cut.
So this is longer in the director's cut.
So in the stage play and the director's cut, Meek Shall Inherit is a much longer song, and Seymour gets a long verse in the middle of it where he's basically thinking about like, great, like this is my future, like I better take hold of this success while I've got it. And then he's like, well, hang on, no, like I can't keep doing this. The plant's going to eat people. He gets to sing the sick line, which is the vegetable must be destroyed, which we don't get here, which is sad. And then he reflects on like, well, what if I do this and then I lose Audrey because he loves her so much? Musical interesting things about Meek Shall Inherit. First of all, biblical reference, Justice, Churchman.
Yes. I'm aware of that.
Yes.
It's from the Beatitude speech.
Yeah.
In the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah. Exactly. See, you know what's up. And then the doo-wop girls are doing absolutely insane singing on this song, which you can't hear as well in the movie. But like by the end, the one on the top line is going, like you can't even articulate the syllables because of how high that harmony line is, which I just think is amazing. Yeah. And the puppet also looks so cool in this sequence as it has grown extremely monstrous. It has tons more leaves and vines, and
just
it's
the
huge.
biggest fucking Brussels sprout you've ever seen.
Yeah. And now it has
it's like
teeth.
veiny too.
Yeah. But it's got teeth.
Yeah.
Dentata. If you ever have me back on again, hot rod or teeth?
I've wanted to see teeth for years.
Yeah.
Teeth rocks.
All right.
have a lot of thoughts.
We'll put a pin in that. Kelsey Hontz will return for teeth.
For teeth, yes. But yeah, the cool song that's much shorter in the film. Thoughts from either of you about Meek Shall Inherit?
So I watched the theatrical cut. That was the only one that I had access to this morning when I woke up very tired and had to cram watching this movie for the show. Apparently the director's cut footage was lost for a long time, or it was only available in a work print version, like a very low quality work print. And so it was only recently restored within the last 10 years or so. So I had trouble finding it without actually purchasing the director's cut of the film digitally. So I like the sequence. I like the the themes of consumerism that are in this movie, and just how businesses will market things and push them out to the world without really considering the ramifications or the danger of them. And I think that theme is illustrated even better in the director's cut, both in this sequence and then, of course, the ending.
Yeah.
And I liked that theme in the theatrical cut. I wish I had seen the director's cut to have it hammered home a little bit more.
Yeah. I like this sequence. I think it's good. And for all the reasons that David was saying. I think this movie is, and maybe the stage musical is as well, since there's a lot that it's drawing directly from in that regard. But I think this movie is like very Reagan era, like we're mad about the rise of the middle class at the expense of the poorest among us, right? And this sequence, I feel like, is like a good, examination of that stuff.
Yes,
like David was saying. I think this movie kind of hates fucking trickle down economics, and I appreciate it on that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this is a case where the doo-wop girls in the stage production and here come out in like really cool, sparkly outfits. And it's just like, goddamn, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Shortly,
This isn't the red outfits.
Yes.
This is the red outfits.
They're also in the background of one of the scenes in the corporate offices.
Yes.
As like secretaries in like these black outfits with glasses.
Yeah.
I thought that was visually very like a nice contrast to the more glamorous outfits that they wear.
Yeah.
The reason that I was asking if it was the red outfits was because I had a distinct moment watching this film when they were in those red outfits, and I was like, Hachi Machi.
Yes, at least they're in the red outfits in like the theatrical version or the theater production normally.
Right.
Like, because often or sometimes the actor who plays Orin Scrivello comes back as all of these bit parts and just changes costumes really quick, and then comes back and is like, Seymour, you lucky dog, sign! And then like that gives the doo-wops time to change. Shortly after this, Seymour proposes to Audrey, and instead of saying yes, she says, sure, which is a direct callback to Suddenly Seymour.
Yeah.
Because she says, he'd snap his fingers, me, I'd say, sure. So she's saying sure to little Seymour.
Yeah.
And then the plant is mad at Seymour because Seymour is like, fuck this.
He's not feeding it.
Yeah, Seymour's like, I'm gonna go live with Audrey. I'll get you some like raw meat instead of meat. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna like,
I'm starving.
I'm gonna call your girlfriend, and she's gonna come over here, and I'm gonna reach up her skirt.
Yes.
Also,
big Freddy Krueger vibes in that phone call. It like had me thinking about that tongue coming through the receiver.
Oh yeah.
In fucking Nancy's ear.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
And this replaces another kind of like annoying musical theater-y song from the stage show, which is called Sominex. And it's literally just Audrey being like, I couldn't sleep. I took a Sominex. Cut. Don't need it.
Yes.
So the plant
attempts to sexually molest a woman.
The plant like seduces Audrey into the plant shop, and he's trying to eat her. I saw a very interesting discussion on the internet.
Yeah.
And this is also where the plot really, really diverges.
I love when I see an interesting discussion on the internet.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
Where in the original version, the plant maims Audrey enough that she dies from her injuries.
Yeah.
And then in the theatrical cut, she just gets like a little roughed up.
Yes.
But people on the internet argued like the plant knows damn and well it could fully consume Audrey at this point. And it just doesn't, because it's giving Seymour the message, like, fuck with me, I'm going to kill your girl.
Right.
Which I thought was an interesting take.
That is an interesting take.
To be like, I could have just swallowed her and you would never see her again.
I watched the director's cut where she does, in fact, die after this.
Yes.
And it didn't really, I didn't feel like I needed to think about that on that level or justify it at all. Him prying open the plant's jaws, saving her dying in his arms, and then him honoring her last wishes and just feeding her to the plant.
Yeah.
I just took totally on face value. I didn't apply any other lens to it.
Yeah,
but that's an interesting take.
The theatrical cut, it definitely has the feeling of like, well, it's her or me,
yeah,
kind of thing. And I was fine with that. So the director's cut ending is actually like 20 minutes or so.
Yes, so the director's cut of this film is an hour 43, whereas the theatrical is an hour 34. So it's like 9 minutes long.
Yeah, so this ending is totally different.
Yeah.
So I found a low quality version of it somewhere on the internet and didn't have time to watch the whole 20 minutes because I figured, oh, this is just going to show me the stuff that's tacked on to the end, not realizing that the whole premise of the director's cut ending is that Audrey and Seymour both die.
Yes.
Yes.
So I just watched like the last 6 minutes of the
The
plants taking over the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say,
Justice Cry count number 2, Somewhere That's Green reprise.
correct.
Yeah.
1000% correct.
Yeah.
This, I cannot stress how much I think the theatrical version fucks this movie up at this point. Because the reprise of Somewhere That's Green and Audrey dying and her last expressed wish to Seymour being, feed me to the plant
Yes.
so that when you continue caring for the plant, you and I are actually still
Yes.
together because I'll be part of the plant.
And finally I'll be somewhere that's green.
It's so beautiful. It's so sad. It is such a tragic end for this character specifically, where like she has such a low opinion of herself. There's even the recurring joke about her and Seymour where it's like, I think you suffer from a very low self-image,
Yeah.
right? About like different, like someone says that to Audrey, and then one of the three
Yeah.
Muses girls, then Audrey says it to Seymour, and it's like, that's her tragic character flaw, is that she doesn't think enough of herself. And it's like continuing to the moment of her death, where it's like, the best thing I can be is plant food, and then I'll just continue to support your success, my precious white man who is here to save me from my life of poverty and shame, right? I'll be here to support you even from beyond the grave. And I like that then with Seymour dying and the plants taking over the world, we're directly critiquing that, right? And being like, no, that's fucked up and wrong thinking, right? And Seymour was bad for doing this, and he caused the end of the world, and it is unambiguously his fault, and he did bad things, and there are bad consequences from them. And it's like, in the theatrical cut, you get none of that. You get none of that tragic ending for her character. You get none of Seymour getting his, like, deserved tragic comeuppance, right? And instead, it's basically just like, oh, I'm fine now. Go kill the plant, right? And we'll go live in our little house, and it'll be perfect. And I'm like, fucking absolutely not. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I did cry during the reprise of Somewhere That's Green because I feel for Audrey, and it's like, I want better than this for her, and she doesn't get it in the story because the story that we're telling is a tragedy.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
There's only so much that I can talk about this, because I watched the theatrical cut. So the things that I like from the theatrical cut of this ending are Jim Belushi showing up and being like, hey, we can sell a bunch of these.
Would you two kids please stop singing for a moment?
David,
Yeah.
would you believe that scene is even better in the theatrical cut? Because even though it's not Jim Belushi, the way the setup for that movie starts...
In the director's cut?
In the director's cut. It's better in the director's cut. Even though it's not Jim Belushi in the director's cut, he goes, Rick Moranis goes up to the top of a building and contemplates committing suicide by jumping off a roof.
Fucking rocks.
And then the guy who wants to sell the plants is just behind him on the rooftop as he's trying to commit suicide. And he's like, hey, you might want to hear me out before you fucking jump off there and end your life. And then Rick Moranis is like, I don't think I do. I think I really want to do this. And he's like, well, actually, I'm going to sell these plants whether you fucking jump or not. And that's what gets him to go back down and confront the plant. But it's like, it's even better when it's like in the middle of a suicide attempt.
I also like when Rick Moranis goes to confront the plant. First of all, yeah, it's basically he almost gets raped by the plant. We almost get a full hentai thing going on here.
Yes,
with
it does
the vines.
pull his pants
Pulls
down.
his pants down, and then it hits him in the nuts. That's fun, and then tries to shoot him with the gun.
Yes.
I think those are all fun things.
Oh, plant shooting a gun is so cool.
I love it doing the little spin thing.
Yeah.
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 But otherwise the theatrical ending sucks, where like it brings the roof down on him. He grabs an exposed piece of wire and shocks the plant, and it explodes
And
in
he
a
goes,
really boring.
Oh shit! I do love a few of the plant's deliveries around the Mean Green Mother from Outer Space song. I love Tough Titty. I of course love the No Shit Sherlock.
Yeah, that's good.
This song is a banger. I love that it contains not one but two uses of the word shit, which is basically all the profanity we get in this movie. And it's the one that was added just specifically for the movie. And it's good.
Mean Green Mother from Outer Space is awesome because I was in the musical, and the musical ending has Don't Feed the Plants. And Listen, I'll be honest, we never quite nailed those harmonies. So, like, it didn't have quite the impact that it has in, like, the director's cut. So I vastly prefer Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. Also because the harmonies are provided by tiny little plant mouths.
I fucking love those little Audrey 2 mouths on the vines. And I love their tongues are waggling when they're doing the
Yeah, it's such a cool effect.
It's so fucking funny.
It is awesome. This is really where they get to, like, use, I mean, the director's cut as well, but they're like, all right, pulling out all the stops with this giant puppet and the special effects, and it's shooting a gun, and it's got all these tiny Audrey 2s that are singing.
It's crazy. And there's so many things that they do in one shot, like when he's hiding behind the counter of the plant store, and it's Rick Moranis, like, hunched, and it's a close-up on him, and then the camera goes to one side, and there's, like, the puppets have come around the side of the counter and are singing at him, and then the camera swings to the other side, and they're doing it over there, too. And it's like, that's all one shot. And they're just, like, figuring out all these crazy puppet logistics, and all of it looks amazing and incredible. It's just, like, it's all so good.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think there's some times where it's framed so that Rick Moranis is on one side of the screen and the puppets are on the other, so they don't have to do that thing where he has to slow down and change his acting, act in slow motion, basically. But there's tons of just cool effects and tricks in here to make this all work. And it still feels really seamless. Like, this is next level practical effects. Like you said earlier, if they remade this with CGI, it would suck shit.
It would be dog shit.
Yeah.
Everything is so tactile. Like, it's real light hitting real objects, and it has a sense of, like, dimensionality in the space, and you get how much bigger this thing is than him. I love when it busts out of its pot too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of that is just so good.
The effect of the plant moving its head around and singing and opening its mouth and articulating, you feel the weight and the movement of it through the space more than you would with a CGI effect.
Yeah. It's amazing. This is my second favorite song in the entire movie.
Yeah, this is one of, I don't know that I have, like, a list of my top, but this is one of my favorite songs.
Pretty much anytime Audrey 2 is singing is my favorite, because Feed Me is my favorite, and then Mean Green Mother from Outer Space is my second favorite. And those are his two big numbers.
It rocks. They were like, we know the vocal talent that we've got, and, rock out with these songs. So that's Little Shop of Horrors 1986, and there are two different endings, and one of them is happy, and one of them is very sad.
Yes.
And one of them is bad, and one of them is good.
Yeah, we pretty much talked about both of the endings, which is in the theatrical ending, Seymour and Audrey, who both survive, go and live in their little flat of a house, right? It's like a little two-dimensional set of a house.
And then it's hinted that the plants might come back because there's, like, one surviving little baby
plant
one.
Ending, where there's the little plant in the garden that smiles. And then the director's cut ending is 6.5 minutes of some of the most incredible effects work I have ever seen.
It's a kaiju movie.
It turns into Godzilla.
It basically does what a presumed sequel to this movie would do, but in 6 minutes. So now we're in Little Shops of Horrors.
Yes.
Little Shop of Horrors 2.
And over this ending is the song from the musical, Don't Feed the Plants.
Yes.
Because the ending of the musical is also dark. It's slightly different than the director's cut ending. Because in the musical ending, Audrey does die and is fed to the plant.
Yes.
And then Seymour, like, charges into the plant's mouth.
He also gets killed.
To kill it, and is eaten, right?
Yes.
And then this is like the finale thing in the musical, where it's basically like, and then the plants are out there, so watch out.
Yep.
But they don't also have them destroying the world in the stage musical, because that would be impossible to do in live theater.
No, they normally just have a really dorky, like, the lead actors have to wear some sort of vine thing to be like, look, they're plants now.
Yeah.
I've never seen it look good. I always kind of just, like, turn my face away.
But by contrast, this finale looks incredible. I fucking love the part. So there are all these giant Audrey 2s, like, fucking destroying New York City. I love the one on the bridge that's fucking enormous and taking down this bridge. I love the one that blows into a smokestack on a building, and then, like, all the fucking windows explode out. It's, like, so fucking good. There's, like, yellow taxi cabs flying through the air and, like, hitting buildings and exploding and shit.
I love the military showing up. There's a guy that that mouths "What the fuck?"
Yes.
which I loved.
Yeah.
And then they're crawling over the Statue of Liberty, and that's like the last shot of the film. And then we get the end question mark exclamation point question mark thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole sequence at the end is so fucking nuts because it's like, hey, all the effects that we've already done in the movie, times that by 5 because we just have tons of these plant puppets destroying the city.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm so mad that they cut this out of the theatrical cut.
I think we've said enough about how much this ending is preferred over the other ending.
Yeah.
But like, what the fuck are we even doing? 1986, you fucked up.
It's like Blade Runner, the final cut versus the shitty version of Blade Runner with the terrible voiceover and the happy ending. Like it's that big of a difference.
I feel like we haven't gotten your take on the endings. David and I have been talking about this a lot.
I don't know, because like I like a happy ending,
Right.
And just because in the stage musical, that's where like most of the difficult practical effects come in, and it's so easy to make it be really stupid if you follow the director ending, which is like, everyone gets killed and then they come back as the plant and the plants like attack. Like it can just be really dumb. So I kind of like, the happy ending where it's much easier to be like, and they lived happily ever after. But I really like Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. I think it works as both like a pop song and a villain song from a musical. And I don't know. I never had like those thoughts about like Audrey's agency because I just was like, I'm her and she's me. I don't want to think about whether or not this is empowering for women.
Well, far be it from me to tell you that you're wrong about
Your
a female
movie
character.
is not empowering, you dumb woman. Yeah.
Anyway.
So here you're hearing two self-professed non-huge fans of musicals use word like incredible and I cried and wow, what a great song. So did I successfully convince the two of you that Little Shop of Horrors 1986 starring Rick Moranis and the Ellen Greene is the greatest movie musical ever made?
And we will have to take musical out of there because the conceit of this podcast is the greatest movie ever made.
I was trying to sneak in there and be like, it's the greatest movie musical.
I don't think you're allowed to change the rules of the show.
Okay.
I tried to do that. I tried to do that on the About Time episode with Dennis Murray. I was like, this is the best rom-com of all time, and David called bullshit on me.
Okay.
So. You are welcome to say it is the greatest movie musical of all time.
But you also have to say whether it's the greatest.
But that's
movie.
not the one that we're going to put in our spreadsheet.
Right,
That's
correct.
the thing we're going to put in our spreadsheet.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have a spreadsheet where we're tracking which one's the greatest.
Is there anything else to cover about the film before we get to the verdicts?
Ellen Greene supremacy. That's
Okay.
all.
I don't think so. I feel like we talked about it.
Okay, cool.
Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Kelsey,
Yeah.
is Little Shop of Horrors directed by the great Frank Oz, in your opinion, the greatest movie ever made? And the definition as coined by us on this show is a movie that is so thoroughly entertaining and enjoyable that while you're watching it, it's the only thing that matters in the world.
Well, since I can't have my parentheses movie
You're not allowed to change
music.
the rules of the podcast. We let you bring the movie.
yeah,
we don't let you
yeah.
decide the rules of the show.
You know what? Because I had a wonderful time rewatching it. I will say yes, it is.
Okay.
Because you have just a damn good time listening to these iconic bops and looking at all these character actors show up for 2 minutes to chew the scenery, and then you get to look at an awesome puppet and also listen to Ellen Greene say, "I'm sorry, doctor." So yes, it is the greatest movie ever made.
Wow.
Cool. Justice,
Yeah.
I'll ask you. Actually, no, you asked me.
David.
I don't know why we decided to change it up.
I don't know. David is Little Shop of Horrors from 1986, directed by Frank Oz, the greatest movie ever made.
No. And I think that is my fault and not the movie's. I think I was just not in the mood to sit down and watch and analyze a movie this morning. And furthermore, the theatrical cut is just inferior to some of the footage that I saw from the director's cut. So if I had some more time with this to sit on it and think about it and watch it and pick up on some of those details in the background that you guys talked about, that some of those things I was able to add to, but not everything, because there's a ton of stuff happening in this movie in terms of effects and jokes and gags and visual trickery and editing. I think if I had some more time to sit with this, I probably might swing over to the other side, but I can only judge the movie that I watched, which was a theatrical cut, and the experience that I had with it, so I'm going to say no. But I had a really good time with this film, and I'm looking forward to going back to the director's cut at some point. Justice is Little Shop of Horrors, the greatest movie ever made.
David Kelsey. So I watched, for my viewing experience of this movie for this record, I watched the director's cut from beginning to end. I did not watch the theatrical cut and then scenes from the director's cut. Like, I just watched the director's cut. And because I knew that I preferred that version from previous viewings. This movie works so well as a send-up of the whole 50s pulp sci-fi thing, as a sort of fun, dark comic twist on the American musical, as a, like I said before, like Greek tragedy, right? Where like Seymour's hamartia, right, leads him to ruin. And I loved every second of viewing the director's cut of this film. I think the director's cut of this film is almost perfect. The only moment where I found myself wondering, does this scene need to be in the movie, was the Bill Murray fucking S&M scene with Steve Martin, right? Because it was like, it doesn't really add anything to the plot. And if that's the only scene where I'm asking that question, you're golden, because that is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and I'm glad it's there just because it's funny as fuck, right? So, all that being said, the theatrical cut really bums me out. Right? Because it's like the version of this movie that exists for the easiest public consumption has a few major issues that I think fundamentally changed my enjoyment of the film. So I would like to put like a caveat by my verdict, right?
Okay.
Because the version of this movie that I watched for this record, and therefore the version that I am judging, is the director's cut of Little Shop of Horrors, which is the greatest movie ever made. However, if in preparation for this record I had watched the theatrical cut, my verdict would be a no. I think I literally have two different answers for the two different cuts of this film. Because I think the ending really does change it fundamentally. But because I watched the director's cut, yes, Little Shop of Horrors is the greatest movie ever.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Amazing.
Kelsey, it was a joy and a pleasure to have you. And
Thanks.
your perspective on this as a fan of musicals and someone who's done this. That was so cool and interesting to talk about with you. The floor is yours if there's anything that you would like to plug to our listeners, or if you just want to tell them to, be good to one another or anything like that.
Gosh. Well, I mean, if you like upsetting shows where lots of people get killed violently, Julius Caesar will be playing at Lowell Observatory this summer.
Yes, if you're in the
directed by
Flagstaff area.
Justice,
That's
which
right.
will be amazing. And some guy is Brutus. I can't remember who. No, David's Brutus, and he's excellent. So if you enjoy this podcast, you might enjoy that. Also, just be good to each other. Don't feed your friends or enemies to plants. Take care of anyone you know named Audrey. And, that's all I got to say.
What about fucking the plants?
Don't
fuck the plants.
And cut.
I can't believe it took me that long to put that together.
That's a good one.
Anyway.
And Julius Caesar, at some point, I'm assuming will be available for streaming.
Maybe, yeah. You can probably buy it.
I hope so, because my parents won't be able to make it to any of the shows, apparently. Blackshakes.org. That's it.
Yes.
For us.
Kelsey, thank you so much for coming
Kelsey,
on.
thank you.
Bye. I spilled water on myself on Don't Fuck the Plants.
Don't fuck
so
the
now
plants.
it's a rough moment over here.
To you lovely listeners, tweet about the show, talk about the show, tell your friends about the show, tell your mother about the show, tell your postman about the show. We love you so much.
Or we will dismember you and feed you to a man-eating plant.
Or if we give you to a plant that fucks you? I don't know. I'm tired. Justice.
Yeah.
What are we talking about next month?
Next month. So there was a coin toss in the podcast's history. In the past of this podcast, there was a fated coin toss, which David won, which allowed him to do a mandate month of films in February.
Wow.
That was David's Valentine mandate month, of course. Look into our back catalog for that if you haven't listened yet. The stipulation on that coin toss was that the loser would also be able to program a mandate month of films, but would do it later than the other person. So I, as the loser of that coin toss, have finally arrived at my mandate month, which is Shaky Cam Summer Camp. We're gonna be taking a trip to summer camp with some found footage horror films.
I had no idea that you would want to watch found footage movies for your mandate month.
Anybody who knows me should not be shocked by this whatsoever. Any listeners to the show know that I frequently am recommending found footage horror films. I fucking love found footage movies, and I'm really excited to talk about some of them. So just like David did when
fire off all four.
Just like David did when he did his mandate month, I'll just let you know what's in store for the month. So the first film that we will be covering as part of Shaky Cam Summer Camp next week is As Above, So Below, the cave exploration Indiana Jones knockoff fucking dumb as dog dick horror movie.
Is it isn't like the Paris catacombs?
Yes, and
cool, so I can slander the French more.
I was about we will be talking about the French. But there's also, I was going to tell you what the MacGuffin of that movie is, but I think it's better if I don't, and you just experience it cold.
Yeah, I agree.
Then after that, the following week, we will be talking about Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum, a Korean horror film that neither David nor I have seen, and has a reputation for being quite terrifying. So that'll be a fun little journey for us to both take. Then we will be moving on to... David, maybe our most anticipated episode for you and I in the podcast's history, potentially, which is the film Be My Cat, a Film for Anne.
Yes, you showed this to me earlier this year. The Podmaster was also in attendance, and I cannot wait to watch this weird little fucking freak film again.
It'll also be our first certified Justice Burkett evil film that we have covered on the podcast. I think this film is deeply evil, and we will be talking about it at length, I am sure. And then rounding out that month of found footage movies, we will be talking about, the one that started it all, the Big Daddy, the Blair Witch Project. So join us next week for Shaky Cam Summer Camp for all of those titles that I just mentioned. That we will be talking about.
Take your motion sickness, if your motion sickness meds.
Take your Dramamine.
Because we're going to be shaking some cameras and running through the woods and yelling at nothing in the darkness.
Yep.
So
there's going to be jump scares galore.
Yes.
And flashlights pointed at nothing.
Yeah, that's the show. We love you. Pay your taxes. Recycle.
Vote.
Wash behind your ears at night. Don't fuck the plants.
Don't fuck the plants.
And Kelsey, will you join us in our sign off? And as always, later, dipshits.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Greatest Movie Ever Made. Please remember to leave us a rating and a review, and to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. We appreciate you supporting the show and spreading the word. Tell your friends to listen, tell your enemies to listen, tell your mom to listen. If your neighbor has an unsecured Bluetooth speaker, connect to it and play an episode. You can follow us on social media at TGMEM_podcast. And if you've got a movie that you want us to talk about, send us an email at thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com.